Good evening and welcome to the June 1st, 2022 Select Board meeting.
We're still muted, Paul.
Oh, we're still muted. Are we good?
Said you were muted. Okay.
All right, we're good? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 1st, 2022 Select Board meeting. Pursuant to the Governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law around remote meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic, we are holding our meeting in a hybrid fashion this evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. And tonight we have Rob Scher is going to be joining us virtually, and the rest of us are here in person in the Select Board room. Should we rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Before we get started tonight, I just want to make a brief statement on behalf of the board. It was only 2 weeks ago at our last meeting, we were mourning the loss of 10 people in a racially motivated mass shooting in Buffalo. And it has been another heartbreaking week as 19 elementary school children and 2 teachers lost their lives in another school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. All of us here are parents, and we send all of our thoughts and our deepest sympathies to those families and the entire community of Uvalde, which will never be the same. I do hope that with this senseless tragedy, we have reached a tipping point in our country where action takes the place of just thoughts and prayers, where we prioritize people over money and power in our federal government, and that we do the right thing as a nation and enact some common sense gun reform, so that all of our neighbors can feel safe going to a grocery store or mall, and our parents can feel safe putting their children on a bus. Friday is National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and I would encourage folks to wear orange in support of it or throughout the weekend. And I would like to thank Pam McQuillan for bringing that to our attention. And I would encourage everyone to add your voice to advocate for change to reduce gun violence in our country. I know that Superintendent Adams has made a statement following the Uvalde shooting, as did Michael Herbert. Our town government, along with the school district and police and fire departments, prioritize the safety of our students and community above all else, and we are committed to making sure Ashland continues to be a safe community for all of our residents.
Thank you.
So we will open this up for citizens' participation. Since we are using the Zoom function, if you would like to speak this evening, if you could use the raise hand function on Zoom, please. And I see Mark DeSoni. Welcome, Mark. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
And welcome to your debut tonight, Madam Chairman.
Thanks.
And Mr. Rob Scher, the only one that's not making it, but I can understand that there is going to be a busy weekend coming up. We have the convention. Yeah. That's different from what this is. And I'd like to thank the town and all this efforts of being a close-knit, comfortable, personal town, because everybody that has no issues, the rest of the country can take part in how we live, to be together and understanding of why we can be together. The rest of the country, take medications and just stay calm. If you don't want to stay calm, then just stay in the house and shelter and don't hurt anybody else. Thank you. Done.
Thanks, Mark. Is there anyone else here for citizens' participation? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the rest of our agenda this evening. Our first is a scheduled appearance. Kurt Cormier from Northern Construction to discuss the night work on Route 126. Mr. Cormier, I assume that is That is you. I can't. You have to forgive us. We're trying to read little teeny names in the corner of a Zoom. So I assume that is you, Mr. Cormier.
Yep, I'm here.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We had received the letter that you had sent regarding night work along Route 126 and the schedule that you had given us. So thank you so much for putting that together. I think that at our last meeting we had approved the night work, but that was sort of contingent on us being able to ask some questions of you, and so we appreciate your being here tonight. And the information provided is really good, and the communication plan provided is also pretty thorough. So I don't know if the board has any questions that they want. I'm happy to open it up for questions, or is there anything that you would like to say up front, Mr. Cormier?
Just that we're all in this together and trying to, get this done as fast as possible and with as little impact to everybody along Route 126. So we'll just, continue to work together and communicate as much as possible.
We appreciate that, and this is a project that we've been waiting for a really long time, and so we appreciate everything that Northern Construction is doing and MassDOT to make this possible, and like you said, working together to try to figure out ways to mitigate some of the impacts to our businesses and to our residents that use the Route 126 corridor is kind of key in our minds. Yep. So I know, Rob Scher, you have your hand up. Do you want to go ahead and ask? Do you have questions?
Sure, just a quick one. Yes, so I think it's a thorough plan. I think the question that I have, and probably others, is what is, so as you're working all night, what is the noise level likely to impact on the residents? Like, are we talking loud machinery pounding, or, how would you describe what they're going to be?
It'll be, the loudest part is going to be, I guess, the rollers when they're rolling the asphalt, because they're going to hit that on vibratory. It's not that they're super loud, but there is going to be vibration. But the good thing about paving is that if we're paving 2,000 feet, that means we're going to be moving 2,000 feet throughout the night. So we're not going to be sitting in front of one residence pounding the ground with a hydraulic hammer or something like that. It's paving. It's pretty constant. I mean, you're going to hear backup alarms and stuff like that, and the rollers, but it moves along. I mean, you got to cover 2,000 feet in 8 hours, so you're gonna zip along down the road. So that'd be the best way I could do it.
Is there any noise mitigation measures you can take that are different than what you usually do? That might.
No, I mean it's the same equipment. It's the rollers, the paver, the dump trucks. There's nothing really we can do about it as far as noise. I mean, it's a lot less intrusive than if we're out there, hammering ledge or even digging, scratching around in the rocks and stuff like that, or saw cutting. But there's not much we can do about it. The equipment is what it is. Unfortunately, everything we do uses large equipment and, rips up the road and stuff like that. So we're a little bit intrusive, and we try to step as lightly as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So just before, I know Steve has questions, before I turn it over to Steve, just I wanted to give the dates and the information that was provided to us, because I think that folks watching would be interested in sort of the timeline for this night paving. So from May 31st to June 10th, you're going to be paving 81 Pond Street to Butterfield Drive, with the night paving being on June 8th, 9th, and 10th. From June 14th through June 22nd, you're going to be at Butterfield Drive to Nash Avenue, with night paving on June 20th, 21st, and 22nd. From June 22nd to June 30th, from Nash Ave to Spyglass Hill, with night paving scheduled for June 28th, 29th, and 30th. And from July 5th to July 12th, you're going to be paving Spyglass Hill to the Holliston line, with night paving occurring on July 11th and 12th. And by doing this paving at night, the estimate, you will reduce the construction schedule by 2.5 weeks. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. So, Steve, you want to?
Yep, thank you. Thanks, Kurt, for joining us tonight. One of the things that we talked about at our previous meeting when we approved the night work was the impact on our businesses along that corridor. And reading your communication, clearly there's communication that's going on between the town and the business owners and residents. But are there other opportunities you foresee to assist our business owners? I know we've had communications to the board from several businesses that have been, impacted pretty dramatically, I think, in terms of their percentage of business. So, clearly, I know you're sensitive to it. I'm not, certainly not indicating that. But what other opportunities may you see for, assisting some of these situations?
I guess I'm not assisting them in how, like communicating to them, or?
Well, I don't know. Speeding up the process, some of the processes, I guess, would be one way. To me, if I were a business owner, I'd want to see the project done as quickly as possible. And I know we have a time frame here, but those kinds of things. I'm not in construction. You are. You'd have to tell me.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it sounds cliche, but time is money, right? So the faster we get out of here, essentially, hopefully, the less money I spend. I don't know if that really comes true, but that's the hope, anyways. We've been, working a little bit extended hours throughout the duration of the project, especially now here this spring. And we try to have multiple operations going on so we can keep moving on down the road. And in the next month and a half, we're going to have over half, 65% of this road on new asphalt. So the road's going to ride a lot better. And then the work we're going to be doing on the new asphalt is going to be like curb and sidewalk, and it's less intrusive. So it should help with people. They'll see a big difference. Obviously we're still going to have to get through, from Market Basket to Framingham and then Elliott Street and the Rotary. But what we get done in the next month and a half is going to be a lot of work, and people are going to see a lot of progress. And the roads are going to be nicer. It's going to be smooth again. There won't be trenches everywhere. And we're doing everything possible to really try to get in and get out of here and just, make things easier for everyone.
Good. Well, great. I appreciate the answer, Kurt. Thank you.
So, Kurt, it's interesting that you brought up the Rotary, because that was going to be a question of mine. It says you're working in a couple weeks in June, Nash Ave to Spyglass Hill. But does that mean you're not doing, because you haven't done all the pre-construction work for Elliott Street and the Rotary, it'll be paved, but we won't see those two things actually completed yet?
Yeah, we're still trying to work out how to stage that work and not,
Okay.
so to speak, blow everything up or make a big mess. So one of the issues with the Rotary is we have to get paving to it and through it, and then we have to get utilities installed on light pole bases, but we can't do that in our current traffic management plan. So we have to do that in stages. So we're trying to just get the big main runs of paving done. And yeah, we're going to have to still bite off the Rotary and bite off Elliott Street, which Elliott Street I think is going to have to get done in smaller increments. There's a whole staging plan for Elliott Street and as well as the Rotary.
Okay.
So,
Great. Well, thank you. That having this detail, I think, is very helpful. And I think for the residents and the business owners, this will be very helpful. Thank you.
Good. Fine.
the one thing I wanted to just ask is it possible to kind of give a high level overview of, I know we're going to be working, this is going to be a kind of an ongoing process for the next couple of years. Do you have like a sense of what the overall timeline looks like and what the impact will be? Like if there will be a point in time where it won't be, you're going to be focused on one section of 126 and the impact to the other side won't be quite as great, or just in general, like more of an overview of the timeline?
Absolutely. So basically right now, I mean, like we laid out what we're working on for the full depth construction now. So from Market Basket to the Holliston line, that's going to be our big focus for this year, is to try to get all that road work done. Over the winter or late fall, you'll see us working on the culverts, working on the retaining walls, and getting that work done. But within a month and a half, we're going to be starting on curb and sidewalk. So now you're going to start seeing curb and sidewalk running from Market Basket all the way up towards Holliston. So come the end of this fall, you get a big chunk of the heavy duty work should be done, and it'll be noticeable and usable for people. There'll be a sidewalk there, which wasn't there before. And then next year is likely where we're going to have to focus on Market Basket towards Framingham. We're still trying to work out stuff with the gas company. They have two big gas mains there that conflict with some of the work we're trying to do. And so the engineers for DOT and us, and we're all trying to work together to figure out how we can get that work done. But, so that would be like next year's focus into the spring, summer, and then it's all the pretty stuff, the landscaping, the seeding, and making things look nice, and hopefully completing the project early in the following year.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Joe, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kurt, thanks for all your information. It's very helpful. I just want to make sure that you folks are working in unison with all the utility companies, because in projects past, especially in Ashland, we've got a project completed, and then all of a sudden, one of the utility companies says, "Oh, well, no, we need to dig a new trench here," So, I mean, I hope that doesn't happen to this project.
Yeah, I think we should be in good shape because most of the utilities in the road, it's Eversource.
Yeah.
They're already relocating the poles, so that's part of the project. And then the gas, we've been working, DOT and us have been working with their gas division the whole time because, I mean, there's two major gas transmissions, plus the regular supply lines that are running up and down the line. So I think you should be in, good shape with that.
Okay. Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Michael, you had a question?
Yeah. So, Kurt, thank you for providing all this information, especially the detailed timeline for the night paving. I'm assuming this is if everything goes smoothly, with no issues. Can you let us know what things might happen that would impact this timeline?
Rain.
Rain? Okay.
Rain's the biggest thing because we can't pave in the rain if the rain's really heavy. Right. Plus, the other thing is that, we can't pave in the rain, but then our subcontractor, if he's on another job and it's raining, that pushes him out. That's really the big thing. We have, we're doing all the excavation and stuff like that with our own crews so that we have control over that. We do have a sub coming in and doing some of the milling, but we have him pretty much lined up. So as long as we don't get a ridiculous amount of rain, things should go smoothly. Rain's the big thing.
Okay. Thanks. Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Kurt. Does anyone else have any further questions? So we had, at our last meeting, we had approved the night work, so I don't think we need to take a vote, but we really appreciate your coming and speaking with us. And, we appreciate the partnership because this is an important project for all of us here in Ashland. I know it's painful for folks in the short term, but hopefully, once they start seeing the roads and the sidewalks, I think that having a good chunk of this completed by fall will give people a good sense of what's to come. And that also kind of gives us a timeline for when, the huge impacts to our businesses and residents will finally be kind of mitigated a bit. So we appreciate your coming and speaking with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you. If you're looking for us, we'll be on 126. So
we'll come find you. The only thing I would ask, the other thing I would ask is that if for whatever reason, if it does rain and we have to change the dates, that just gets communicated to us, so then we can communicate that to the residents as well.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
You too. Okay, so moving on to our agenda, under old new business, our Economic Development Advisory Group, we have 4 items here. Discuss the changes to the Business Incentive Grant Program, review the updated sign and facade grant program, review the updated Business Incentive Grant Program, and review and approve the application from Uppercuts as approved by the advisory group. And the applicant is requesting a $10,000 reimbursement for rental assistance and $10,000 reimbursement for equipment. And I know we have Beth Reynolds here, our Economic Development Director, here in person. We've gotten some information in our packets, and Beth, I'll turn it over to you to take us through the changes that you guys have worked on.
Okay, great. Thanks. Nice to be here with you in person. First time.
I know,
I know.
yay. You're our one and only audience member today.
I do feel a little special. And that last topic was one of my favorites. I love the 126 guys. They're making great. Are we getting? Oh, sure. Sorry, you can't hear me. You don't have to get me on camera. I'm good if you don't have to have me on camera. Well, great. Well, thanks for having me tonight. So the advisory group met. We've been talking about this for a couple meetings now, about just making some minor changes to our application in the incentive program. As you know, it's been a huge success. A lot of other communities have called me asking, how do you do this? So I think it's a great testament to us that, we're really making a change. And if you visit any of the businesses that have received these grants, I think they would say the same thing. So the group got together, though, and we said, we haven't looked at this in so long, in years now, so let's sort of take what we know now and revisit what we have in front of us. So we're here tonight just to sort of let you know that we've made some changes that we think will help benefit this program and will help sort of extend the program a little bit more. So currently, the first change I guess I'll talk about is that if businesses invest more than $250,000 of their own personal money, then they were eligible for an additional $20,000. Several businesses have received that. Dulce de Leche, Tomorrow's, Mazi. So what we sort of looked at that, and we thought, you know what, we have only so much money, and those were $40,000 investments. So that helped 2 businesses, because we have $80,000 in the budget for this year. So this coming fiscal year. So let's extend that. So now we've made the investment $750,000 to be eligible for that additional $20,000, which would get them to it could be $45,000 plus. So we think that if they're investing in Ashland, then we can invest a little bit more in them, but we felt like that mark would sort of help that along. The second change is that we have actually decided that we would like to really focus on our commercial corridors. So now we've added in that businesses can apply, but their locations need to be on the 126 corridor, the 135 corridor, greater downtown Ashland, which is Main Street, Front Street. This is how we define it. Main Street, Front Street, Cherry Street, Homer Ave, and Summer Street. So those are the businesses that will be eligible. And this will affect both incentive grants. So we have the sign and facade and the business incentive grant now. We've changed the name, which brings me to the next thing. So the group, it was originally called the Amenities Financing Grant for amenity businesses to apply. We think we're trying to make this a little bit more easy for all business owners. So we're making a few changes, and one of them was just call it what it is. It's a business incentive grant. We want you to come to town. We're going to incentivize you to come here. Let's call it what it is. So that's the first one. So that will be, that encompasses all of it, the business incentive grant. It's the rental, the equipment, and then you have the sign and facade. And then we just made some minor grammatical formatting changes. Just wanted to make sure we were correct in all of that. So we did make a few changes to that. I did note, too, in your packet that we're making these applications available in different languages. We're adding personal support. So any businesses that are having trouble navigating this application, we think that it's a pretty simple application, but oftentimes it's scary. It's a lot of, it's a lot of work. So we have, our advisory group is supportive of that. so they can work with someone on our advisory group and do that step by step. I'm always here as well. I answer tons of questions on it. So those are sort of the changes, I think, that I wanted to bring to your attention.
Okay. Go ahead, Steve.
So, any
Your mic, is your mic on? Yeah.
So, I guess a couple things. Number one, any thoughts, as the group discussed, the potential for some of the forced relocations that may occur, let's say, from 10 to 50 Main Street, if that project moves forward, and how you would handle something like that? I mean, I know, we're incentivizing people to come to Ashland, but here we've got businesses potentially that are being forced to move out of a Ashland location. So, how do you anticipate prioritizing that situation, or is it first come, first serve? It may or may not be an issue, but it's just something that seems to me that would be fit into the parameters here. And then I'm assuming, I don't know if any of the awards that you've already granted have been given to businesses kind of twice. So an original business, and let's say they've moved somewhere and they reapply again. Is that something that is feasible or works into the program?
It has not happened. However, it's a good question because there is a business that we have given money to, and now she wants to expand it to make it mobile. So it's a good question. It hasn't come before us. She has sort of felt me out about that. We haven't really put parameters on that. We've just been sort of doing it case by case. It was so new to us. We had a $100,000 earmark from the state, which was great. So that year we had $160,000 extra. So we didn't see the demand. We're starting to see the demand. So that's a great question I can bring to the advisory group. I mean, we do want to support all businesses, but yeah, we are kind of still working on how do we do that? Do we prioritize? We talked about prioritizing to minority businesses, to women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses. But the group decided that we would just sort of see how this fiscal year went and then relook at that again with the additional $20,000 that we have from last fiscal year. But you'd also asked your first question about the other businesses.
Yeah, and I would ask the advisory group to consider that, because it may be something that comes up, depending on what goes on.
Is this regarding the mill?
The mill building.
Do you want to address that one?
Yeah, so, I mean, if you remember, the board had actually allocated $100,000 of ARPA funds dedicated to help with those businesses in their transition. Now, we still have to figure out exactly what that program looks like.
Right.
Didn't think it would come in the form of this business incentive grant, but I think we also want to see what the mill owner is also looking at doing as well.
Yeah.
So we have before us exactly that thing, right? AJ Uppercuts, who's in the mill building, is moving to another location in Ashland, and we're being asked tonight to review that and approve it.
Right.
So, it's just so happens.
Well, he's
that-
not being forced out of that location. He's making a change for different reasons, but, it's the likelihood of people being forced to move if the project goes forward is pretty high.
Right,
So-
but I
this
would-
is a different
But the
scenario.
ARPA funds is what we would most likely use for
Okay.
whatever program that ends up being. But Uppercuts is a perfect example. He's not leaving because of what might happen in the
Right.
future with the mill. He's leaving because he wants to expand his business, and in order to do that, he has to change locations.
Right.
And just to give AJ a shout out too, he's going to build something here that is going to bring in people from
Right.
all over the state, from other states, which can be a huge economic benefit to the town.
Right.
So
AJ's got big plans.
he has big
Good.
plans.
He has a great
He's
product,
he
quote
does.
unquote, and
Yeah.
a good business. Okay.
You sort of, yes, I sort of go there. Sort of.
So I just want to say, sorry.
Nope, go ahead. Sorry.
I like
Talking
the
about her boxing
changes.
career.
I like the changes that have been made. I think increasing from the 250 to the 750 makes sense. I like the idea and that you've changed and added some of the longer term and having to hire people and create jobs. I think we've always talked about wanting to improve our business footprint in Ashland, and I think some of these are the things, and certainly the work you've been doing because of this as well as other things, has brought businesses. I mean, I think Crossroads Physical Therapy at 128 Main Street is a perfect example of you know, people who had a business model, were looking for a location, and because of what was offered to them and the business and the way you reached out and worked with them was one of the reasons that they decided to come to Ashland. So thank you for the changes and keep up the good work.
So I have a couple questions, unless I'll just jump in. So first of all, the business incentive program is, I think it is a huge benefit to our town. So I think every single, you know, to your point about Crossroads, I think every single ribbon cutting I've been at over the last couple years, every single business has specifically mentioned our business incentive program as one of the reasons that they came to Ashland. It makes it so much easier for them to be able to afford to build out their space and not have to have, you know, to be able to cover part of their rent while they build it out, or be able to buy some equipment to be able to help with the financing. So it's a huge, like, you know, I think the benefit of the program far exceeds the money that we've put into this. So thank you so much for pulling all this together. I have a couple questions. One, you know, the program is slated to have an $80,000 budget in FY23. $80,000, you know, I know, I read in your letter that, you know, the demand is growing. So how are you planning to manage the demand with what is, you know, relatively limited funds for a whole year? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and the group went back. We discussed this in length, because we do it on a rolling basis. So we never know when a business wants to come to Ashland, and we want to support them when they need the support, which is usually when they do their build out. So we did go through that. Do we do it quarterly, and we have them stack up, and then we review them? Do we do it annually? It just sort of seemed that the group decided to keep it on a rolling basis. We don't have to fully fund them. That's the other thing. When the money is out, the money is out, unfortunately. But we just decided to keep it as a rolling basis, to really look at what they're bringing to our town, what our residents are getting out of this as well, and what their investment is. I think that's really what we're going to be focusing on mostly this year. And again, I think we're going to have to revisit this every year, because I think we're going to start to see a lot of changes coming. We have a lot of new property that's in front of the planning board, which is exciting for me, right? But to see what comes and what we can bring in. But I think the demand is going to be even more.
And I'm also thinking, like, you know, I like the changes that you made to really kind of focus the priorities in certain parts of Ashland, our economic corridors, if you will, like 135, downtown, 126, which brings me to my other question, like 126, you know, once we complete the revitalization of Pond Street, you know, I'm seeing in my mind a lot of businesses hopefully wanting to reinvest in themselves and possibly take advantage of like the sign and facade improvement portion of this. Have you heard anything? Is that something that you're already hearing, or is it something that you think is kind of in the future?
Yeah, I think in the future,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, one business owner said, what can I do now to help me during construction? Do I need a bigger sign? Of course, this might be a good use for that, to get through this difficult time. But for the most part, yes, we will definitely market to that. We'll be encouraging businesses to take advantage of the program once construction is done and they know exactly how their front yards are going to look. So yes, we will definitely, you know, hope to market to that corridor for sure.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions, comments? Joe, go ahead.
Just one quick one, Beth. I totally agree with the changes that you've made and then for the better. I noticed that Pleasant Street's not added on this. I'm kind of curious because we have.
Joe, I think your mic's off.
That better? Okay, sorry about that. My question was that I noticed that Pleasant Street wasn't listed on here.
You know what? It's really
And there are
good.
several businesses that are on
Yeah.
there that could be affected or could use that funding.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering if that's something that was
An oversight?
An oversight, yeah.
Look at you, Joe. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's a good one. We'll add that in there.
Okay.
I had a similar question. What was the intention of limiting to certain streets? Like I noticed, I don't think Nickerson Road, for example, is on there. Or, I mean, are there certain reasons that we want to emphasize or assist businesses in a certain area?
Yeah, because we're focusing, we found that, just looking at the applications, we only have so much money. So we felt like really focusing on those economic corridors, the ones that are, we're investing a lot of money, the state's investing a lot of money into that at this time. This is what we wanted to do.
And I think, Rob, just to jump in, I think especially for a program like the sign and facade program, you want to make an investment to where it's going to be the most visible and the most impactful, at least from that standpoint.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
It's a tough one. I wish I had $800,000 a year
Yes.
to give to all
I'm
of
sure.
the businesses.
I'm
Trust
sure.
me, it's yeah.
I'm sure. So the only action that we have to take tonight is to vote on the funding of uppercuts,
No,
correct?
you need to vote to accept the changes.
Oh, we
as
do need to,
proposed.
okay, all right. So could I get a motion to accept?
I move that we approve the changes to the Business Incentive Grant Program as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Roll call vote.
Vignani, aye.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
Chair, aye.
Kinsman, aye. Passes 5-0. We're good.
Do we need to do the sign and facade grant program separately? Or because they're now all the business incentive, that's all under one?
It's all under one.
Okay.
Okay.
But then you also do.
I
need
need,
to take a vote.
I move that we approve the application from Uppercuts as approved by the advisory group for the application requesting $10,000 reimbursement for rental assistance and $10,000 reimbursement for equipment as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Roll call vote.
Vignani, aye.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
Chair, aye.
Kinsman, aye. That passes 5-0.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you
And
so much,
good luck
Beth.
to AJ.
Yes,
Yes.
and me and my boxing career. I just need more time, that's all. More time in my day. He's great. I absolutely support uppercuts. They do great things there, so. Anyway, okay, moving on. So discuss the town council evaluation. So I know Susan had sent out a Google form. We had taken the town council evaluation form that we all had seen and filled out last year, put it into a Google form. We're asking that folks, that the board return by the end of this week, by Friday the 4th. Yeah, and if I know, Joe, you were kind of, if you prefer to, if anyone
No.
prefers to do that.
I filled it out and sent that. I hope you guys got it.
It wouldn't go directly to us, it would go to
Susan.
Susan.
So.
So it would actually collate it automatically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So the process
Okay.
will be.
So I get the send button and that went directly to Sue.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Cool.
I'll be there,
All right.
It should.
hopefully.
Let's hope
And
so.
it needs to be by this
Technology.
Friday?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I saw some eyebrows raised when that was mentioned. Is that going to be difficult?
If we could bump it to Monday, that'd be great.
Okay, because I think, so if you do it Monday, that would be good. That will give us an opportunity to collate it, review it, give Brandy and I an opportunity to review it with Lisa next Wednesday. Although I'm not sure if Lisa is going to be in next Wednesday. We'll have to arrange some kind of discussion. And then the following meeting, you'd have an opportunity to discuss reappointment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does
So
that-
Monday, if Monday works, that's appreciative.
If I
Monday's
could have a
fine.
few extra days.
Monday's fine, Monday's fine.
Great, thank you.
I'll have mine in soon. Did I miss something about the technology? I was just going to mark up the PDF and email it to Susan. Do I do something
So
different?
there's a Google form that Susan had sent
Oh,
out.
all right.
So
I'll look for that.
Yeah, if you can
Okay.
go that route, it just makes it
Great.
a little bit easier. If not, feel free to send in
Okay.
the document from
I
last
think
year.
I'll
it
try
came
to
as a
Google
separate
it.
email.
All right,
It
thanks.
did.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah,
Yeah, Rob, if you need us to send it again, we can do that.
No, it should be there, right? So,
okay.
So I don't know whether or not you got my Google application form back, but if you can give me a heads up, that would be great.
She might not have looked yet.
Okay.
When did you send it, Joe?
Oh, let's see, today's Wednesday? Monday.
I can't hear him.
Monday.
I did not get it, but I will go in and look again.
Let me know so that way I can resend it again.
Okay.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions, concerns about
Mm-hmm.
town council evaluation? Okay, moving on. So we're going to discuss the summer concerts. I assume this is Mr. Mignani? The summer concerts?
Okay. I didn't know that was going to be on the agenda, but okay. That's
Okay.
All right, we have plans for the summer concerts where we requested some money from the BAA funding. We're finding out right now that the different bands that we've had over the past 3 years, the one band that we really liked, and they were the Beatles tribute band, they went up to $1,900 for a 2-hour gig. And that's not uncommon. I mean, Michael is pulling his hair out, and there's not much hair left in Michael Duke, I'm sorry. There's
Well,
not much
me
hair left.
too,
You
but-
too, but, you know.
Point taken.
It's just like, it's crazy. They just want, you know, the fee structure is just nuts. So, I mean, we're being very cautious and careful about the money that we spend. We want to have more local bands come into play, and that seems to be working out a little bit better. We have people that have played at Maisie's a few times. They'll be back, and they're very reasonable, but they're very good. And so with that, we're looking at the 28th. We're starting the 28th of June, and we're going to go right to the last week in August. And nothing on July 4th week. That's, everybody's away, and it just doesn't make sense to spend all that money.
You're back to going weekly?
Yeah, we're back to going weekly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're trying, let's put it this way, we're trying to go weekly.
Yeah.
Depending upon the number of bands we can get.
And
Even
the
if I can
weather-
get 100 kids with kazoos, I'll put them out there.
That'll be good.
It would be fun.
That does sound really fun. Go ahead, Yolanda.
Just a comment. I know you don't usually ask for people to donate at the event. It's
Yeah.
a free thing. Because you are seeing more expenses, I mean, it might be the kind of thing where you just pass the hat, say, if you feel like donating, please donate to help cover the costs.
We may-
Something to consider this year.
Yeah, we'll probably have to consider it.
Good
We'll
thought.
put our sad face on and just, you know.
The other thing,
Trevor.
Joe, is, you know, there's a ton of local musicians, and when I manage the music for the farmer's market, so when I put out my first email, I mean, I filled 18 weeks in no time. So there's opportunities there for, you know, if you wanted to look at some of the
Yeah.
musicians that play at the farmer's market, they
Yep.
certainly would fit into the budget.
Yep, that sounds good, yeah. Pass that along, that
I
would be
will,
great.
okay.
Thank you.
In
So-
fact, I had folks, I couldn't, folks on a waiting list because they just,
Mm.
you know, filled up really quickly, so.
But that's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to you and the Ashland Day Committee for putting all that together for us this summer. We're looking
Mike-
forward to a full concert series.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Things are getting back to normal. So, thank you. So moving on to our agenda, review the BAA grants and announce awards. Steve and Rob, you are our BAA grant subcommittee. And
Yes.
we have in front of us the list that, of all the organizations that had submitted applications
Yep.
for our spring round of BAA grants. Do you want to?
Yeah,
Go
just
ahead.
briefly, Rob and I met last Friday, and we reviewed all the applications. We did provide grant awards to everybody that applied. Typically, we don't, it varies. Some organizations, depending on, I think, the breadth of contact with the community, depending on that parameter, we fund fully, but typically we fund partial awards, and which is what we've done right along. And you know, we always like to maintain our own reserves for projects that might come before us that we want to fund separate from the BAA grant. So that's kind of the premise between how Rob and I look at this. So, you know, any questions? I think everybody received some, you know, substantial amount of money.
Yolanda, go
There was just one or two that for me, I felt like it was a little, I don't know, not inappropriate, but a little preemptive. The one in particular from the Ashland Student Services for the class of 2025. So they're graduating in 3 years, and they were looking for funding to help offset the cost of expenses associated with the prom because fundraising efforts have been impacted by COVID. So their prom is still 2 years off. I mean, if we feel that we want to do that, but it was just surprising to me that they're asking for the money already when prom is still 2 years off, so they still have the opportunity to do fundraising. And it doesn't even talk about that it's going to be scholarship or something like that for kids who need financial support because they can't pay for it.
Well, this is, again, we partially funded.
Yeah,
that.
it was a partial fund, but
And, it's clearly they can't come back and ask again.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
whether it's today or next year.
Yeah.
They've been awarded some money.
yeah,
Right?
okay.
You had another one?
No, it was more of a question in regards to how the spreadsheet is set up, that it says total requests and then total recommendations. And total recommendations seems to be more than total requests, and I'm thinking maybe it just wasn't laid out correctly.
Yeah, that confused me as well. So what I looked at ultimately was, the total request based on, which bucket it was coming from, right?
Right.
And then Susan has, below that, she has it laid out perfectly.
Right, which is
so you
very
can
nice,
understand.
yeah.
So it's just
Okay,
that,
so that's the pink
that
and
total
blue.
recommendation number, I wasn't unclear about, but everything else,
Okay, so-
worked mathematically.
So the pink and the blue match with
Yeah.
what account we're taking it out of.
Yeah,
So,
Excellent, okay.
And just
That
to kind
answers my
of,
other question.
yeah.
I know folks can't see the list that we have in front of us, but there were 23 organizations
Right.
that
Yeah.
had put in an application. And
And-
the way that this is funded, it's anything that is a 501c3, it can come out of the runner's account, which is based on
Right.
the fundraising that our runners that run the marathon do for the town, the $3,000 per runner. Anything that is not a 501c3 comes out of our select board gift account.
Right.
So,
And Michael, can you just refresh us on where that money comes from?
I mean, it used to be funded through an agreement with Northeastern.
Right.
So now still with Framingham State. Is that correct, Susan?
Okay.
We've recently discussed this.
That is correct. It's in lieu of taxes on
It's a
the
pilot,
room
yes,
rentals.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So that's from the end, I'm assuming?
Correct.
And that's there, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions on the BAA grants?
No?
Thank you guys for a great job.
I just wanted to thank Steve for all his detailed work on this.
Well, thanks,
I
Rob.
came in
mean-
and I came in and was like, yes, that sounds great.
No,
Good job."
don't say that. We worked hard. We were diligent, and I mean, I think it's it's a great program. We're fortunate that to have these buckets of money to be able to support a lot of these community groups, and I think it's great. I mean, one of the things, I mentioned earlier, we don't necessarily fully fund everything, but there's certain things, like the dog park,
Right.
I just think we need to, keep moving on that.
Right.
And I think I mentioned at the last meeting, Framingham's dog park is ready to open up.
Right.
And it looks like it's going to be a really nice facility. And,
Right. And they started a little bit after us, but I think they had departmental staff dedicated to working on it. They got a design, and they also had a flat area. Their design
Right.
and engineering, I think, was very straightforward, whereas because of the location we've chose, it's going to be a little bit
a little bit more
a
involved.
little bit harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
But still, I mean, again, it's
And
a
this is
great
appreciated.
program, so, I thank Rob as well for putting up with me.
Well, I thank you both. So if there's no other further questions, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the total requests for the BAA grant program as presented, with thanks to Steve and Rob for doing such a great job.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote.
Vignani, aye.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
Chair,
Kinsman, aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you both for your help, and thank you, Susan, for all that you do to keep
Yes.
all
Yes,
this,
thank you,
this
Susan,
organized.
as well.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Yes.
Okay. So moving on in our agenda, we have Upper Charles Trail, discuss route control and the process. So I'm going to turn this discussion over to Mr. Scher to take us through tonight.
So we have no backup for this, right?
We have no
This is just
backup.
a discussion.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
No, yeah, discussion. Yeah, thanks. So we've all kind of discussed this before. We've been discussing over past months about how we can move forward with the Upper Charles Trail and kind of get route control by looking at the parcels and how to contact folks, especially private owners, and how that process would look like. What about staff resources? What about the committee work? How are we going to approach this? So I note that there are several members of the Upper Charles Trail Committee here: David Rosenblum, Preston Crow, and of course Joel, the chair, is here. And I want to thank you folks for coming in. It's a late notice. I meant to talk to everybody last week after we kind of put this on the agenda, but so I apologize for that. But we certainly appreciate you being here to add to this discussion. And I would just, so I discussed with Joel, and he's going to make kind of a short statement of how he sees this process going and his recommendation for how to approach it. And then, Madam Chair, we can just have a larger discussion amongst all the folks about how we move forward on this. So
Okay.
I'll turn it over to Joel now. Thanks, Joel.
Thanks, Joel. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Rob. First, I just want to thank the board for inviting us in. This is a very important topic to us and to the community. So we greatly appreciate the opportunity to have a discussion on where we're at with the board and see what direction they feel we should be moving in. Where we're at this point is that there really is very little land that the town owns along the trail route. There are one or two exceptions to that. We own a part of the Dyke Trail, which is, for people who don't know, a trail that exists right now off of Route 126. The school owns, the town owns, obviously, school property that we hope to cross at some point. But right now, we're at a point where to move ahead, we really believe we need to obtain more land so that we can do the work that's necessary, such as engineering, surveying and engineering, and also obviously construction of the trail. So with that in mind, one other problem that we're encountering without having control of the at least more of the route than we have, if not the full route, is funding. Repeatedly, we've been told from numerous sources that you just can't go after funding if you don't own the land. I mean, nobody wants to give you money and say, well, if you do eventually get it, you can hang on to this. If not, maybe just give it back to us in the future. They have higher priority projects to fund than that kind of iffy condition. So, we really are at a place where we'd love to be able to go out and fundraise. We, in the past, have been able to raise some money. But without more control of the land, it's very difficult. We also, in our last funding round, we were able to obtain some substantial funding, which we greatly appreciated, from DCR and also from the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee. And in both of those discussions with those funding sources, they put a strong emphasis on the fact, number one, obviously, that we needed to make sure we had absolute control of the land, which we did for the Trolley Brook Trail that's now been completed. But also that they were especially interested in, well, this is just this isolated piece. It doesn't, the trail doesn't connect to any other existing trail. So we weren't adding on to the Holliston Upper Charles Trail or any other trails. So we assured them that we have, as part of the master plan, that's very much what we want to do. Like the Trolley Brook Trail, we're hoping to be very proximate there to Ashland State Park and be able to get down to the dam area and, some of the recreational opportunities that could afford. So the emphasis again was on, contiguous parcels and control of the trail. So with that in mind, I've had numerous discussions with different board members at different times over the last year or two, and also with town manager Michael Herbert. And it seems like what we need to do at this point is have a discussion about what process we are going to pursue to try to start obtaining some of the easements we need. We more than recognize that sometimes it can take 20 years to get an easement approval. It's not always a straightforward process. Sometimes there's not much work involved. The landowner just is not going to cooperate, or they're going to think about it, or they're going to sell the land in a bunch of years. And there's all kinds of variations. But the goal would be to be able to start to at least make preliminary contact with the landowners we've identified. This is something, again, I've discussed this with various board members and the town manager, and all so far I've spoken to see this very much as primarily a board function. And in fact, I don't know that the board will necessarily recall this, but when we first presented the consultant's report on the final plan for the trail, the board specifically told us not to pursue easements on our behalf, having us do the work with any of the non-corporate private landowners, and we have not done so. So what I would love to see happen here and throw out as kind of a, what do you think about this, is we've identified, and this is pretty good news, the initial idea was that we were going to need some 30 or 35 easements, which we, frankly, I don't know if you do, but we see that as a very overwhelming challenge and something that would just seemingly be impossible or take a very long time. We've been able to reduce that now with a couple of minor changes, not in the route so much, but in just, various land things that have happened without getting into specifics. We've reduced it to roughly 10 property owners at this point. We see the amount of work involved and the time involved as having been, at least as far as the number of parcels, substantially reduced. So what we're hoping can happen is to have the board take on the mission of making at least the preliminary contact, basically just a letter going out to the property owners from the board or the town, notifying them that we're interested in a discussion with them regarding the siting of the trail. And let's see what kind of reaction we get at that point. We may find that some residents may be very cooperative and understand the value, and others it may be a much more time-consuming, challenging thing. But we think where we need to at least get the ball rolling here is to send out a letter notifying the relevant property owners of the town's interest. So that's about it. It doesn't go much beyond that. That's what we're hoping to do.
Thank you, Joel. I know that there's other members of the Upper Trails Trail Committee here. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add to that. Preston, David? Oh, everyone's shaking their heads. Okay, I'll take that as a no. So I have a question for you. So as far as the priorities and the parcels go, I know one of the parcels, at least one of the parcels is on the high school property. I'm curious if you've had any preliminary discussions with the school committee, or if you've been in front of, I know some of this falls under wetlands, if you've had discussions with Concom about what the route is going to look like, or the planning board outlining what the route is going to be.
Right. We have previously met with the school committee and discussed the siting of the trail. They were actually, we actually met with the high school principal And, the initial plan that Alta, our consulting company, had prepared actually was using the paved path that went from the school out to the football field. The school was extremely negative about that, and we adjusted that plan, but none of that's been engineered yet. I mean, we're at a very preliminary stage. And even in doing that, I mean, there's just so much we can do without spending money on engineering. And again, if we do that, the high school, where does the trail go from there? I mean, let's say you put in a trail right on the high school property. There are surrounding parcels that we need to have discussions with to look at, it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing. I mean, we're looking at trying to have a little bit more of a gestalt, a kind of a more comprehensive view of the trail, so that when we meet with each, because any individual owner may say the same thing to us. Well, what about the next parcel that you need? If you don't get that, why do I need to give up my parcel? So I think we need to look at this more in a comprehensive way. And in the ideal, I mean, we may have issues with any given parcel. There may be problems that we're not yet aware of. But I think to at least make that preliminary contact really should be our next step.
Yeah, just to add to that, we did, as Joel said, we did go before the school committee, but I think there was discussion about reappearing before both the school committee and the planning board, which I believe the committee took that on as tasks. Is that correct, Preston? Or I thought we were going to do that and had a process in place to, for example, I remember a couple of years ago, we had pretty detailed discussions with the school committee. I remember Paul Keating was very involved and worked out a pretty good route. But to Brandy's point, and it is kind of a separate process, but we should make sure we're back with those folks and the Concom as well in terms of this route. I don't think that should stop what we're doing here, but that's something else that should also, dot the I's and cross the T's again with those folks. So that's what I would urge the committee to do over the next few months, in addition to this exercise.
Yeah, I think I'm in absolute full agreement with that. I think the more we communicate to other organizations within the town government, the better off we're going to be. Everybody needs to have an awareness of what we're doing and what role we're envisioning they would play in the process. But again, I think that all of that comes back to the fact that right now, if the question is, well, are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? We really need to have, we really need to move ahead with site control over at least a substantial part of the trail to have any of that stuff be a little bit more relevant than it is in the abstract. So, but yes, I agree. I think there are two different things there, and one isn't necessarily dependent on the other.
Okay. Steve has a question.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Now we're talking about process moving forward, and I think we're all supportive in moving forward here. But it was my understanding that at some point we were, this is months, maybe a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we had a discussion about meeting as two entities and reviewing in a public session all of this information. So is that, we're not doing that tonight. Is that something that we're not interested in doing? Or, to me, it seems it should be part of the process that we do that and we discuss all of these parcels. And, I'm certainly not opposed with the communication piece that you're suggesting, Joel, but I think we need to sit down. I thought that's what we were intended to do.
Well, let me be very clear about this. I appreciate your point very much, because it sounds like what you're highlighting is very specific communication about I don't want to misquote you, but to really have a discussion with our committee and the board about the specific parcels involved. That's your focus there?
That's correct.
All right, so I just want to highlight this, okay? I wish I could say this in a more positive way. I've been begging for that meeting for a very long time, and I have gotten responses, let's say last year sometime, more than 7 months ago, I asked for an executive committee meeting, and the feedback I got at the time was that it was, Mr. Herbert, feel free to jump in on this, but Mike, I have the email. I mean, he said he thought he agreed with that it was an important and good idea. And, another board member said that he would set the meeting up, and it hasn't, and despite repeated emails, that hasn't happened yet. So the bigger point, rather than pointing fingers or getting into any of that, okay, the bigger point for me is that it is my strong recommendation, and some others on the board and the town manager have agreed with this, that this should be done in executive session, at least for the first meeting, to understand the scope of what we're dealing with, and to protect the landowners from having this information be made public before there's been more discussion about it.
So have we received any comment from town council,
We
either
have.
a recommendation to start this in executive session, or have we not?
So I did talk to town council about this specifically last week, and I think there was
Yeah.
another issue that we were wondering whether or not it was appropriate for exec session. She said we can have a general discussion about it in exec session.
Okay.
About
You said
the
we
land-
can have
we
it- okay.
can have that discussion.
So that was, Joel, to be, certainly forthcoming from my perspective, that was a question that I had right from the beginning. Is this something that we can or cannot do in executive session? And I would have to defer to town council, and so clearly we have an answer, so, we should schedule that.
Okay. I just want to confirm, just to be clear. So, Michael, you're saying we could meet an executive session with like the list of parcels and discuss each one? Is that the?
We
gist
don't
of
have
what
to
you're
list
saying?
the parcels, Rob.
No, I meant when we're in the session, we can talk about the parcels.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think, just to put in my own 2 cents here, it sounds like we should schedule this executive session with a list of the parcels, and then have a discussion about each one and their merits, and if there's issues that need to be resolved about each one. I could see some could, that would be, I think, a very helpful session. We should, include the members of the committee, the trail committee as well. But if we can get that going, I think that would be a useful exercise.
Okay. So does anybody from the board have any comments, questions? No? So it sounds like, Joel, the next steps are this executive session between, with the select board, and also just to put on your radar to begin having these other meetings with boards and committees that would be impacted by the trail, the school committee, the planning board, maybe Concom, and kind of lay out what you guys are planning to do. Does it sound?
That sounds great. I just want to reiterate, and I like I said, the more we communicate, the better. So I couldn't be more supportive of the idea. We have previously met with the school committee, Concom, and the planning board,
Okay.
focusing on the key elements of the trail. But there have been personnel changes, and it's been a long time. So I very much think we should revisit that.
Okay. Yes. Yolanda, go ahead.
So we're being told there's 10 parcels. So when we set this meeting, can we get a route map that shows those parcels so we can sort of discuss, and before the meeting, so we can understand what the impact is and just the current route and stuff like that. And I know for myself, there's at least one parcel that has been discussed that I hope is not on the route, because I've heard from the landowners that they don't want to be part of this. So that's one thing to think about. And as we're, talking about, I know we've been having this discussion about whether or not we can do this in exec session, and I'm pretty sure we had originally gotten some advice where we couldn't do it in exec session. So it sounds like information or advice has changed, or the question was asked differently, or something?
I think once town council had a better understanding of what was being asked and what was happening, then that is what changed the mind. But yes,
We've had lots of discussions about whether or not we can do this meeting and how we can do it, and, you know, so I don't want the committee to think that we haven't been discussing that and haven't been trying, but we were getting different advice, so, okay.
I have a question. I'd be more than happy to send, whatever documentation you would like to get, maps and, parcel listings and all kinds of information that we have ahead of the meeting, which would be great.
Yep.
I was asked this long ago, like a year ago or something, and my concern was that if I send it, it becomes public record. So that, if we're going into executive session and I email something to the board or even the town manager, is the fact that it's going to be discussed in executive session somehow protective of not having it become a public document? That's beyond my pay grade. I don't know how to address that.
Joel, why don't you drop it off, like a hard copy off to me of what you'd like to distribute, and we'll figure out the best way to get it to people.
That sounds great.
Okay.
And then
And
we'll be in touch about a
Yeah.
date that we could set up executive session.
And I just want to add
Doodle poll.
to Yolanda's comment. I mean, if you have certain issues with the route, that's the kind of thing we need to discuss. And I wouldn't take anything off the table until we've had that discussion. So I would add that to it. That's why we're going to have it. I mean, there are complications in the route, and that's why I think it's good to have this kind of discussion.
Okay. Thank you very much, Joel and Rob. And if there's nothing further, we'll move on in our agenda. And Joel, we'll be in touch with you shortly on timing and a date.
Great. Well, thank you all very much. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
So next on our agenda is discuss the joint meeting with the planning board regarding the comprehensive and strategic plan. So I had sent out a doodle poll to both the planning board, select board, and our town staff to try to find a date that worked for pretty much everybody, which I'm glad we found a date that worked for pretty much everybody. So the date will be Monday, June 27th from 7 to 9 p.m. We are planning to meet in person and here in Town Hall. And so as it gets closer to the date, I've already talked to Tricia about it. We'll work on putting together an agenda and work with Michael and Peter on that as well. And yeah, I think that's, it's going to be a 2-hour meeting with a hard stop at 9 o'clock.
You said 7 p.m. start.
7 p.m. start. Yep.
Good.
So, does anybody have any questions, concerns?
No.
We're good? Okay. Next on the agenda is a letter of support for the governor's forward bill. Michael, I'll turn it over to you. I know you had put together a letter.
Yes, and thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry for the late notice on this letter. I hope you've had a chance to review it. I think I've talked to each of you individually about the circumstances around this. Recently, the governor has filed an economic development bill that he calls his forward bill. It's an act investing in future opportunities for resiliency, workforce, and revitalized downtowns. It has funding in there for climate change and resiliency efforts. It also has funding for all 351 cities and towns for community projects that they have planned or they have shovel ready and under construction or getting ready to be under construction. Included in that bill was $3.5 million for our downtown project. So this letter is simply a request for our legislative delegation to support that bill. Now, as you know, as a broader perspective, there has been some disagreement in the past between the legislature and the governor on who actually has the authority to spend ARPA funds, which I should say that the majority of the funding from this bill would be coming from the state's ARPA allocation. So part of this letter is also asking to make sure that while understanding that there is that broader policy disagreement, that our communities are not necessarily I don't want to use the term held hostage, but I guess I just did, for some of these projects. So.
You don't want to be part of their power struggle.
Yeah, it's, it's unfortunate, and certainly, I think everybody has their own perspectives going into it. But this letter is just asking for support for our project through that bill.
Yeah.
Just one little Scribner's, the very first sentence. First, we want to take in opportunity, not end opportunity.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
Does anyone have any questions for Michael? Any
No,
concerns?
I think
And we
it's a
strongly
good.
support it.
Yep.
Where,
No, I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a good idea too. Where is this in sort of the process in the State House?
So I believe it originates in the House, it would need to originate in the House.
Okay.
So it'd have a bill number, a file number, and go through that process. And I figure with money, it would need to first go to Ways and Means, to House Ways and Means.
So should we send a similar letter to our representative? if it
I
starts in
will.
the
This is
House?
just,
Okay.
this is just an example, and I chose the Senate President.
Yep.
And we haven't had our legislative team, clearly during the pandemic, that was impossible, but maybe something we want to initiate in, maybe not over the summer, but in the fall is.
It was
Yeah.
mentioned on Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, on Monday, from Jack at the Memorial
Oh, was
Day
it? Oh, I didn't
celebration.
catch that.
Yeah,
one.
they're
Yeah.
eager to come here, and we've
Okay.
actually tried to find dates for them to come here. It's just our schedules
Okay,
haven't
oh,
necessarily
good,
lined
good.
up.
It's long
And that's-
overdue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. The
nobody's fault.
next agenda item is our summer schedule. So
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
So, so the board, do we need to vote on this, or are we okay?
Yeah, I would appreciate
I
it.
am moved that we support and approve the letter as presented to be sent to both our Senate President and our Senator Karen Spilka and our Representative Jack Lewis in support of the funding through the governor's program.
second.
Roll call vote?
Vignani, aye.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
Here, I.
Kinsman, aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you, Michael, for putting that
Nice
together.
job.
Welcome. Thank you
Yep.
for your support.
Are you going to put an asterisk and mention the comfort station or not? No.
No mention of comfort stations in here, Rob. Rob's
All right.
referring to the fact that
VCR
also
thing.
under Ashland, there was 2.5 million, I think, for comfort station improvements at Ashland State Park.
See how that
$2.5
goes.
million to
Yeah, was
improve
it 2 or 2.5?
the restrooms
I
at
don't
the
remember.
state
It's just some
park.
enormous
They
amount.
were recently updated.
And Hopkinton State Park had the same thing. So my assumption is that all state parks are receiving comfort stations.
That was a catch-all.
For
Well,
a
if it
state
helps
park
them
that-
be
It's a
open.
catch-all.
Yeah.
Just in case the upper child's child path went through, they would have the opportunity to use that instead of a tree.
Exactly. So, okay.
Okay.
All right.
On that note. All right, moving on. Our next agenda item is to discuss the summer meeting schedule.
Yep.
I know, depending on the year, we've had sort of a reduced meeting schedule in the summer, so I wanted to just make sure that we had a chance to discuss it and see how the board felt about potentially reducing meetings during July and August. So I'll open it up. Or do you want to say something, Michael?
No, I mean, Brandy and I talked earlier today, and we were just looking at different schedules. Typically, we have one meeting in July, one meeting in August. What we could propose is doing something similar with also a backup meeting date, so in case we needed to have another one. So those proposed meeting dates would be July 13th, the second Wednesday in July, and then August 3rd, with a backup date if we needed to have another meeting on August 24th.
Wouldn't we need to have one at the end of August as we go to do our reappointments? Because I doubt they'll all be ready by August 3rd.
Well, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. If we did do it on the 3rd, we would need to make sure that we accelerated our appointment process and make sure that we get all of that information out.
When are you going away?
I think that's not,
I'm gone the 9th through the 21st, so I'm gone for 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks. So, which we can still meet, just we'll have to organize our agenda.
That's August for you?
August.
Okay.
We could, Actually, we could do the alternative if you wanted to, like July the 13th and August the 24th as the dates, and then have the 3rd held as, like, if we
As a
need to have a
reserve,
meeting.
yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
could do that. As far as travel for the rest of the board, does anyone have conflicts on those dates? Anything?
No.
Long weekend,
good.
not middle of the week.
Okay.
So what are we looking at? We're looking at the 13th and the 24th.
Yep,
Right.
with potentially the 3rd if we need it.
Yeah.
August 3rd.
I mean, here's the thing. Even if you're away, you could come in, right? So
She's on vacation.
I'm in another country.
I'm not talking
Not
about you,
happening,
Brenda. So,
Rob.
for
I'm in a-
example, I might be off somewhere, and it's easy enough to spend an hour.
No, I'm kind of going to be in another country.
No, that's what I mean.
You're in a
No, I'm not
gondola.
You're on
objecting to
vacation.
moving the date.
What time
But
would
thank
it
you, though. I appreciate your thinking of me,
I
Rob.
like the idea of the 13th
No, I
and then the
didn't mean that.
24th.
Yeah.
The 13th and the 24th,
that
but
works.
hold the 3rd just in case something comes up and you need us to review or,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the other thing, we do go with missing members
We don't
too.
anticipate any other special meetings coming up, things like, meeting with another board.
Well, we're just now
We're
trying to
doing
do
the comprehensive
upper-
plan at the end of June.
Upper Charles Trail.
Well, that's an exec session, so we'd bundle that into one of
Yeah.
our meetings.
Well, if we need to have a meeting with another board, it's
We'd
probably
just-
of a subject that's large enough that it would warrant its own.
Its
Its
yeah,
own
okay.
time, yeah.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
That works.
All right.
Good.
Sounds like we're all comfortable with that.
All right, so we're on the 13th and the 24th. Is
The
that it?
13th and the 24th. Yep.
And put a hold on the 3rd, just in case.
Okay.
All right.
Because the other thing we've been talking about that we weren't able to do at the end of May is the Valentine property meeting as well, right? We need to get that.
We have some ideas
Yeah,
about
some
that.
thoughts when we get
Okay.
to that agenda
Okay.
item.
So, but thank you. That's definitely something we gotta make sure that we
Yeah.
schedule sooner rather than later. Okay, so moving on, I put on the agenda outline procedures for agenda meetings, backup and follow-up to email. Just to kind of, anyone that knows me knows that I'm probably pretty structured and organized. So I just wanted to go over our process for how we set agendas, how we do backup, when we get our packets. And so Susan sent me the policy, and so I took a look at that, and, we meet as myself, Rob, Jen, and Michael meet the week before to set the agendas. I will reach out to the board to see if there's anything that they want to add to that meeting's agenda the day before. We will, the policy states that all agenda items must be sent to Michael by 4 p.m. on that Thursday, so if it's not included in the agenda setting meeting, I'd ask that anyone send agenda items to Michael or myself. And Susan generally posts the agendas on Friday. And I would ask that all materials, if there's anything that needs to be reviewed by the board, if there's anything that needs to be in the packet, if everyone can get that to Susan and Michael by Friday, by the end of the day Friday, that would be great. For me personally, I like to have a couple of days to review packets, so we've talked about trying to figure out ways to get more time for us to review. So if all the packet material can be sent out no later than Monday, that would be great. And the reason,
So many years ago, we talked about it would be good if we had it by Friday, because then it gives us the weekend to review it. I know, especially this weekend, Monday was the holiday. Again, we all have different schedules, we're all doing different things, but if we could get the packet end of day on Friday, for me, it does two things. One, it gives me the weekend, and two, Michael then isn't trying to get it to us on the weekend. Maybe that's helpful for you, but if we could have it by Friday, that gives me that many more days, and I know we've talked about this before, so.
okay.
Yeah, I can get you a packet on Fridays.
Okay.
It's just, I might be waiting for some information that comes on, and sometimes it comes in on Saturday, and then I can always
It's just
compile it.
a little odd sometimes when I'm on social media and I see our agenda posted and I'm like, I didn't know we were, So it would be good if as it's being posted, maybe we can get a copy of the agenda
Yeah.
without a backup. so that if there is something on there that either we don't want to do or, that would be a recommendation.
Yeah, that's a
You know.
good point. That's a good point.
That is a good point.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask the board is, one of the reasons I kind of wanted to kind of go through this process was to put out there the possibility that we post our backup minus any sensitive information out on our website prior to our meeting, so that the public can have a chance to review the material prior to our meetings. I've had a couple requests. Somebody's like, "Oh, well, where can I see that information?" I think it would be helpful as long as it's nothing that's sensitive information. But I wanted to throw that out to the board to see if there was any feedback on that.
I don't see why not. I mean, it goes up there after our meeting, so.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if we would be able to post it that Friday. but
Right, no,
maybe
that's
fine.
Monday after.
I'm in favor, post it, this is, open government. I just would anticipate that, we'd start to see discussions happening out in the Ethernet somewhere based on that information being available. So, just be aware of that. Again, how we respond to it is our role to do, but I think you can anticipate kind of a community discussion in some form or fashion happening.
So-
And, take it as an example. If we posted the BAA awards prior to our meetings, we could have a whole chaotic conversation,
Right.
right?
Right.
Both positive and negative going on. So I think it comes with the territory. I'm not saying, that's the reason why we should not do it. I don't believe this is sensitive enough information to, not to release. I'm just suggesting that it's not going to be as simple as just posting our backup,
And
Yolanda?
just to add to that, and I've brought this up before, but because there are many boards where there is discussion happening about stuff that we're going to be voting on, we as board members have to be very careful about posting our own opinion. Because if I put my opinion out there and all four of you see it, that could be considered as an open meeting law violation because my opinion is being presented to the rest of the board. So just be aware of that. If you do decide to respond to something or make a comment, straight facts is always fine, but once it's your opinion, it could impact, we could have troubles.
For me, I think the best avenue is not to respond at all.
Right.
If that
I-
chatter should occur.
I agree, I'm
it's
just putting it out there.
Yeah.
It's,
hard not to.
folks are having a discussion before the discussion actually
Right. Right.
occurs. So my suggestion is don't respond, right? And it's just gonna be part of the noise out there.
Yep.
I do think it would be helpful to have that information out there, because especially when we're in this hybrid format, it's hard for the public to follow along with some of the stuff that we're doing.
It's good open government, I think,
Yep.
best
Okay.
practices,
Okay.
I think.
Do you think it's a doable thing? I know that would require IT to, we had like our conservation restrictions for the Valentine, like our CR documents out there. I'm thinking something along those lines, creating a
Yeah.
folder.
I'd want to talk to Paul about the best,
Okay.
the best way to do it. If it's just like a link to a Google Drive to it on there, if it's an actual link to,
Yeah.
Okay.
a
Yeah.
packet.
Do you,
like a
do you
document.
do you have any concerns? Do you or Jen have any concerns about doing that?
Just, we just we'll need to make sure that we don't put out any sensitive information out there.
Okay.
And be very careful. Did you have any other things?
And I would think the timing of when Susan sends us our final packet, that could be when it's posted, right? Because then it's a final packet.
That could be
And then it's
for-
maybe the day before or the
be
morning
before.
of or
We
something.
We usually do that the day
Right.
before, like the
Right.
final.
So
the
Yeah.
final
that I
packet.
think would be, okay, this is our final packet, now it can get posted, rather than a
Okay.
draft or the, initial stuff.
Okay.
That way, if something changes from Friday to Monday,
Yeah.
it's not just out there.
Yeah.
Joe,
Someone may
Rob,
have-
do you have?
someone may have some.
Just a question. So we would post it back up with the agenda on or just before the meeting or a day or two before, it sounds like. Is that
Yep.
Correct.
Yep,
okay?
okay.
And you won't have multiples of agendas out
Right,
there.
right, yeah. And the only other thing I wanted to talk about was, you know, when someone sends us an email to the select board email address that goes to all 5 of us and town staff, I know from my personal perspective, you know, the chair typically responds to those emails, but the rest of the board really sometimes doesn't know how things have been resolved, or, you know, there's no mechanism to close the loop, which has always been kind of like something that has kind of been a little pet peeve of mine, because then I'll reach out to somebody and ask if it's all been resolved, and they're like, oh yeah, it's been taken care of, and we just don't get that feedback loop. So I wanted to put it out to the board to see if, you know, potentially we either have something as a standing agenda item where we discuss correspondence that have come in
Oh,
from,
good idea.
from the
That is,
public.
yeah.
Yep.
Just, you know, anything outside of the, you know, thank you for your you know, anything that requires action on the board's or the town's
Yeah.
part. Does that,
Either
Good idea.
correspondence or via board report.
okay,
I know that it's been done that way sometimes.
okay, all right.
Either one.
Michael, Jen, do you?
No, I mean, I think there might be some so we get a number of different requests, and I think some resolutions, I don't know if private's the right word, but they might require a little bit more discrepancy in terms of what we talk about in public and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it could
So,
be-
well, let's just quickly, you know, look at an example. So we did receive a communication from a resident living on Olive Street complaining about all of the parking on a very, very warm, unusually warm May Sunday, I believe, either Saturday or Sunday.
Sunday.
And rightfully so. I mean, we, as a town, I know we anticipate this. This is a little early to anticipate it being that hot on that particular date. But, you know, so how would we handle something like that? So I know, well, I don't know what transpired, other than at some point after the fact, no parking signs were applied. So, you know, that's probably a good example of, you know, this kind of process.
Right, right.
Yeah, I mean, I could say, so something like that, what I could do is I could report back to the board. Okay, so, you know, first thing is we installed the temporary no parking signs. I can say that officers were ticketing quite a few cars during that afternoon. I don't think we ended up towing anybody, I don't think, but I know we issued a lot of tickets. And then also there was a request to put up permanent no parking signs, and so we're referring that to the Roadway Traffic Safety Committee, which I think we have an appointment
June 8th.
for tonight. So that, I would imagine that's how something like that would.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think those are good things to be reviewed, so everybody, I mean, especially the public, knows that it's been handled.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
Okay.
All right, so that's all that for that agenda item. The next on the agenda is a recap of the 10 to 50 Main Street presentation from Tuesday, May 24th, and the next meeting that is scheduled for June 7th. So Michael, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, as you know, the owner of the mill building, Rich Gordon, he held a forum on the 24th to discuss the latest iteration of his plans. Just to remind everybody, these plans, it's very, very preliminary. He has not even submitted an application to the planning board yet, but wanted to get some input from the public as to what they thought about the design and some of the other aspects of the project. I will say we got a lot of good feedback. It was measured feedback. I thought it was delivered very courteously and very constructively. So what we plan on doing is we're actually going to establish a part of our website for 10 to 50 Main Street. We're going to be putting up a video of that, the video of that forum, as well as some of the other documentation that we have received, and also a summary of the comments that have been that were delivered during that meeting. And then also we're going to advertise another forum that's going to happen, which is on June 8th, I believe.
Seventh.
Did I
June
say
7th.
June 7th, I'm sorry. June 8th is when we're meeting. Or, actually, no, it's not. There's something on June 8th. There's some meeting.
Study committee.
I think there's one at night, too. Can't
Okay.
remember. Hopefully, it's not the roadway traffic safety committee.
No. 9 o'clock.
But anyway, hopefully we'll get some more information out there about this project and get some more feedback. I did have an opportunity to speak with Mr. Gordon afterwards and just kind of get his take and his approach on things. One of the things that we did, which was kind of unique to forums that we've done in the past, is we've had a moderator or a facilitator be there, and his role was really to help kind of flesh out some of the questions and comments and see if it can become actionable data for people to utilize. It didn't exactly work out, the way we had planned, but I think it's the first time that we had ever done it. So we have
Who was the facilitator?
Rami El Samahi, who is his firm Over Under is an architectural firm, and he's done these things before. So both Tricia Kendall, as chair of the planning board, and I have had a conversation with him about ways that we think this could go better. The dialogue could be smoother and a little bit more transitional, as opposed to having me moderate the meeting, which ended up kind of happening.
Could you also stress, I think, the desirability to be a little bit better prepared with some of the information that was, questions that were asked, and, the lack of real substantial answers?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed with that myself. The only thing I could say in defense of Mr. Gordon was this was a forum specifically about design. It was supposed to be specifically about design. I think we were a little bit naive to think that that's what all the commentary and questions would be focused on. So, yeah, I can certainly encourage him to be a little bit more prepared on some of the other aspects.
Particularly, one of the areas, and I know Mr. Seymour was there. He's the fiscal impact guy, but some kind of facts and figures would be nice to look at rather than a narrative.
Well, so he did have those facts and figures in a spreadsheet. The thing is that we were using Scott Richardson's Zoom, and there was no way to help share co-host responsibilities.
Yeah.
So he couldn't share his screen. So, but I agree, that would have been a lot more helpful.
Yeah.
So haven't they already submitted to the historical committee for a demo?
They have. So
Okay.
they've submitted that. Oh, that might be what's on the 8th. Is
Historical
the
commission.
historical commission meeting.
Okay.
I thought the feedback at the forum was really good. I thought that the folks that came out and participated really added a lot of value. My question and concern is how open to the feedback is Mr. Gordon? Like, this is, and this is one of the things that I love the idea that we're putting out information up on our website. The issue for me is that this is not a town project. We do not have control over this project. I don't want to set up the expectations that we have control over this project.
I agree with
And
that.
putting it up on our
Absolutely.
website, kind of, it's a little,
Well, except that through the planning department, they've put up projects through co-urbanize and stuff like that have been in front of the board
Right.
for permitting and stuff, so.
right. I'm just cautioning how we approach it, because if the forum was, I think the idea behind the third party, facilitating it was good. The execution didn't quite pan out exactly,
Right.
kind of, I think, how you had hoped and how maybe Rich Gordon had hoped. I just want to make sure that, when these forums are hosted, that we level set what the expectations are from the public, because I appreciate all the feedback that came from that forum, but it's ultimately going to be up to Mr. Gordon and the planning board to decide what this project ends up looking like. So, I just caution how how much invested the town is before it even gets to the planning board.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it's something that we struggle with, I think, with every private development project, is we get accused of it being our project. This one, much more so because, you know, and I'm not defending Rich in any way, shape, or form, but he has actually gone, I don't want to call it the extraordinary step, but we've gone through 2 years of a process of trying to help mold and shape his project while recognizing it's his responsibility and his prerogative of how the design is. He's actually come before the boards, select board, planning board. We created a working group. All of these are public meetings to help, to help shape that project while understanding that the final authority on this and the final decision-making happens through the planning board process. And I do think by going through that step of trying to get public input, we've almost got tagged, had this project kind of hung around our necks a little bit more than previous projects.
Probably, but still, I mean, it seems to me a project of this magnitude, of this importance to certainly to our downtown, clearly other communities in similar situations are, they are working with the, with the developer, with the landowner to tailor the best possible project. There's nothing unusual about that.
But it's after a project, it's after an application has been submitted, though.
Well, I don't know if that's the case all the time. I mean, it seems to me that, communities that have really transformed, let's say, their downtown area, have a goal and a vision, and, how many times, Michael, have we as a board entertained development agreements or discussions with a developer or a landowner before it gets to the planning board, so, I don't think this is an unusual, I think, interaction. I think, the fact that, we may be accused of this being our project is, in my opinion, very short-sighted and lacks any real thought
Critical
about
thought,
it, Yeah.
No, I would agree. I would agree with that. I think the board has, since I've been here, you've done 2 development agreements, one with UGC, one with Cirrus. But we also talked at the very early stages about doing one with this project as
That's
well.
Right.
As initially.
Yeah.
So I think, I think that's a good point. I think one of the things that I think we have to make clear is that whatever Gordon proposes doesn't necessarily mean that we're in agreement with. I certainly had
Also
issues
doesn't mean
with-
we're not in support, right? I mean,
That's
it's
correct.
that balance, but I guess, for Steve's point is, for the public, it's not our project. We don't have 100% say over it, certainly not as
We
select
don't.
board.
We don't.
There's records of all this. There's,
Right.
Right.
There's meetings that have been recorded.
Yep.
There's minutes, and clearly from day one, we identified what our priorities were. I remember that. I still have my notes from that very
It
first
was in the
meeting.
packet,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I remember, what we discussed as a board and what we communicated. And, I see that as our role.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? I wasn't at the forum, but what did you folks think of the latest kind of design? Are we making progress?
Personally, I will say that I thought it was a step back from the last design that we had. I thought it was a step backwards. Personally, and that's my own personal opinion. So,
Because the only thing I saw was the thing from Facebook, which showed this big facade thing.
yeah, I mean, what they had before was the newer buildings had a side gable roof that looked very similar, I think, to 21 Main Street, except it was four stories. They're not allowed to do 4 stories. They need to bring it down to 3 stories or 38 feet. So basically, instead of just chopping that down, which I know is a lot easier said than done, they kind of redid this design and had this like wave feature at the top. But again, you know, I thought it was a step backwards, but as we've talked about here, I'm not the final
Yeah,
design
I would
authority.
agree. I mean, I have no sense of design, but I would agree. I thought the prior iteration was much more pleasing, I thought.
Just too big, right? Based
Too
on
tall.
what you said, it was
Too
too
tall.
it-
Too
it
tall.
didn't- Yeah.
I think the question of scale is going to continue to be an essential, you know, thing for the public.
Yeah.
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 Well,
Yeah.
scale and what they're allowed to build within the zoning.
Yep.
That's the big part,
And this will be a special permit.
right?
So from a timing perspective, once the second forum happens, is Mr. Gordon putting in an app, like, what's the timing of it? Because,
You know, he has not given me an exact date, but I
Okay.
would foresee him putting in a planning board application very, very soon afterwards. Hopefully, he takes the feedback that he got from this first forum seriously, is able to incorporate some of that. Again, we hope that's what he does. You know, presents that to the community at the next forum, and like I said, I think he'll submit an application shortly thereafter.
okay, is Rami doing the second forum as well? Is it basically the same material being covered? Is it anything different?
Well, I think, again, what they'll do is they'll present a revised design
Okay,
Based on the feedback.
based on the feedback that they have. And like I said, hopefully they've incorporated a lot of that. I will ask that they be prepared to discuss some of the things that are outside of the design, such as things like traffic and the, you know, EPA issues and
To businesses.
the businesses, you know, things of that nature, the financial impacts, the fiscal impacts.
A more comprehensive review.
Yeah.
You know.
okay. Does anybody else have any other questions on 10 to 50 Main Street? No?
No?
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
So moving on to our consent agenda. We have all this in front of us.
Motion to accept as presented.
Second.
Roll
Reeves,
call.
aye.
Mitchell, aye?
Here, I.
Kinsman, aye. 401.
Yeah.
Moving on to priority project update, the Rail Transit District. Michael?
Yeah, I have no update on that. We've, moving on to downtown, I will let the board know that we had to make a slight change to the undergrounding of the tracks, just the design of how we're doing it, not necessarily the design itself above ground. But, so that's going to require another review period from the MBTA, Keolis, CSX. So we go through that round. They're limited to 90 days. We hope it's a minor change, so we hope that it gets done quickly. We did get the poles cleaned up from the farmers market area, so that's clear. We were able to consolidate a little bit more of the material over farther down from the farmers market. And the good news is that, I don't know if you've noticed, but the light poles are now up, or many of the light poles are now up. We've got a couple banners just to kind of see what that looks like from a scale perspective. But it's nice to see some things happen. So, you okay? Okay. All right. Yeah, those light poles, they're exciting things. They're electric.
How about the curbing, Michael? Status on that?
So they hope to have it next week, but
Yeah,
they can't say for sure.
Yeah.
But that's the
But soon.
schedule, yeah.
Yeah, good,
So
excellent.
they'll start the curbing work, then you'll start seeing, like I said, we'll start seeing it take shape. And
Yeah, and how about sidewalk installs? How does that coordinate with the curbing? What happens?
So after the curbing is installed, then they'll do the sidewalks, and then they'll do the street trees and some of the landscaping issues, and then they'll do the final pave.
Nice.
And then it's about making the connections from the property line to the homes or businesses, the utility connections, firing that all up, making sure it works, and then removing the wires and the poles.
And what's the timing for the paving, like
Should
general
be the end of
ballpark?
should be the end of this year,
Okay.
this calendar year.
Nice.
They'll be doing the same thing, grinding the road down and putting
Yeah, they'll
new,
do a mill and
base coat
overlay
down.
on it, yep.
Okay, cool.
So excited about that.
Great.
Public safety, they've made a lot of progress on the building. It's doing a lot of interior finish work. Jen, I don't know if you want to add anything or.
Well, we were there
Yes.
today.
Yeah.
We had our tour today, and it's completely different than what it was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
And,
there's the first binder coat of asphalt is
Yeah.
around the back of the building,
Yeah.
and they're starting to grade up to the finished levels, and, the interior, all the tile work, I think, is done on all the floors. Painting in a lot of the places, at least prime and first coat, have been done in most places. The cells are all look
They're all
pretty
in.
much ready to use. Some of the cabinetry is in some of the rooms as
Yep.
well. So it's moving.
What about the elevator, Steve?
It's in.
Well, the elevator was there.
I know
We
it
didn't have the
really-
key, we didn't have the capacity to do that today, but it's installed
Of all days.
and operational, so, but, dispatch is still just an empty space as well as records, so, clearly a lot more work that needs to be done there, but it's pretty impressive. It's big. The apparatus bays are very impressive, and so doors on the apparatus bays, I understand, in a week or two, those will
weeks.
be in, so it's,
It's moving
there's,
right along.
yep, real light at the end of the tunnel.
But the date has been pushed out to September.
Yes.
It's pushed out to September the 9th, and basically because the committee made a decision to do some design changes in the lobby area, made some changes with a safe haven room, and also enlarged the window for dispatch. And so there were some lead time issues and so on, but it'll be beautiful when it's done, so.
Nice.
Or anybody else?
Good. No,
wanted
we're
to-
good. We're good.
And with Mendez, they're still continuing the steel erection, which is crazy, how quickly
They're
that
going
stuff
so
is going
fast,
up.
it's unbelievable.
I did receive my first change order to sign.
Yeah.
So nothing major, but, it's just like a regular project, so.
Just a reminder, though, for everybody, on Monday, June 13th, is the beam raising.
Yep.
It is not going to be the final beam, but they wanted to do it when the kids were in school, so you all should have gotten an invite, and I hope you can join us, because it's a cool thing. They have I think it's either a 28 or 32-foot beam that they're painting white, and they're going to let the kids sign it and other
that's
people
great.
sign it,
Yep.
so it should be a lot of fun,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then it'll
Will be
become a
fun.
permanent part of the building.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's nice to see some of these projects cresting, I think, over to getting.
There's a light
more
at the end of the
completed.
tunnel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just hope it's not a freight train.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a very faint light, Joe.
But you think about it, and it's like the public safety building will be completed in September. 126 will have some really good progress by the end of the fall.
Yeah.
Downtown, we'll see major, almost, looking like back to normal by the end of the year.
It should be looking.
By the end of this calendar year, we're going to have a lot of these projects, and a lot of the
Over the hump.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be good. So
Yeah.
hopefully.
We just have to thank all the public for understanding and going through the trials and tribulations of growth.
I know, it's tough.
And
And getting
supporting
things
it.
done, yeah, and supporting it as well.
Yeah.
It's tough,
So.
absolutely.
We took a big bite, and we're slowly chewing it up, but
Yeah, we'll definitely learn from that mistake.
we did.
Yes.
But it was a good mistake, though.
Well,
It'll be good when it's
And when it's
over.
completed,
Yeah.
right.
But this town has been known to take on multiple projects at once. I mean, think about Town Hall, then the library, and the community center,
Yep.
and then the high school.
Yeah.
All within about 4 years,
Yeah, but-
all went through.
But you think about 126 downtown,
Yep.
the school building, the public safety building, the Valentine Project, Cadillac Paint. Warren Barn and the Warren District associated with that, the Quiet Zone, the MWRA connection, DEI Task Force. You know, you can just go on and on.
Upper Charles Trail.
Sorry, Rob.
We already discussed
Actually,
that.
yeah, Trolley Brook Trail, the Riverwalk.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
think
right.
All of that.
Mill
Riverwalk,
Pond Park.
sure.
Yeah.
And
It's really a
and-
transformative time.
And COVID.
And
And
COVID.
COVID.
Right?
Yeah,
I think that's the part when I'm talking to people that I try to remind them of that yes, we're getting stuff done. Yes, it's seeming slow at times, but it's because we've also had to manage COVID here in the community. And as a community, we stepped up to support. I think about the 3R program and the Ashland Emergency Fund and all that. I mean,
Yep.
Yeah.
we live in a pretty good town. I mean,
We do.
I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
Yeah. I hear you.
So, and I really, it's an opportunity to give a shout out to the volunteers and the staff, especially, I mean, we've had a number of staff members who have stuck through all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's
didn't
something
make
that
it
we can
any
all look
easier.
back, be pretty proud.
Right.
Yep.
Pretty proud of.
I do have a question. So if the public safety building, we're opening in September, and, you know, we'll be moving our personnel down to the new building, at some point, I assume before September, we'll start talking about those parcels,
Well,
or,
I think you bring up a
because-
good point, because we're also talking about a comprehensive plan.
right,
Right.
And is this an opportunity to maybe take a breath and say, okay, let's, you know, we have all of this opportunity in front of us now. Do we want to think about how we do this?
Right.
I think that makes perfect
Holistically.
sense,
Yep.
rather than jumping in and saying, what are we
Yep.
gonna do with each of these parcels? We know we wanna do a comprehensive plan / strategic plan, let's those parcels be part of that discussion.
And the road work that we're going to do. and
Yeah,
all
I think that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
good.
Okay, Valentine?
Yep, so Brandy mentioned earlier tonight that we talked a little bit about a date for a forum. I've been able to go through and really start putting together, the presentations really coming together. So we would be looking at June 29th for that.
June 29th, and that's going to be a
June
live.
29th?
That's a Wednesday.
It was actually
It
one of
is.
the dates that we had initially floated by
Yeah.
everyone for our comprehensive plan joint meeting with the planning board.
So
Okay.
we're
I
going to be
think it-
meeting the 27th and the 29th of
Yeah.
that week. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
So much
So
for
is
a
that-
reduced summer schedule, right?
Seriously.
What's this,
June.
Well,
I'm sorry, I
June,
missed that. What's this
when's,
forum?
When's summer start?
The
June 25th?
Valentine Forum?
First, yeah.
Oh, the Valentine
Yep.
Forum, okay.
That's okay, so what is it?
What
A similar
time,
thing,
where?
7 to 9?
yeah.
Yeah.
Here?
I assume everybody
Probably.
still wants to look at doing a hybrid.
Yeah.
Hybrid.
I think that's probably
Well, if
the
we're going to do
best.
that, then we have to do it here. 'cause
Yeah.
This is the setup for it.
Yeah. The
It
library
really
might
helps
be
the
able to-
public, I think.
Okay,
All right, so,
What's the date again? I'm sorry.
the 29th.
Wednesday, the 29th.
and
7 to
location
9?
to be determined?
Or hybrid, but here,
We'll
Unless
say
the,
here
we were talking
about potentially
the library, if the library could do a hybrid,
Okay.
but to be determined.
And then-
sound is a little bit harder at the library, because we
Okay.
have to bring somebody in. Am I correct, Paul? Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, okay,
Then that
that's
answers
good to
that.
know.
all right, that
That's that.
decides that.
We have everything set up here.
Right.
So the other thing is I also sent an email to the board within the past couple of weeks about doing the roof and doing the foundation repair. So we're not going to have enough money to do the plan of stripping the roof and letting it kind of dry out, giving contractors or an opportunity to see what could be salvaged, and then deconstructing and re-erecting the barn. We're not going to have enough money, but we have to do something with the roof in that section of the foundation. So we'll just, I guess, bite the bullet and move ahead with that.
So I have two concerns with this. One is, okay, we're going to fix one section of the foundation. Most likely in the future, we're going to have to fix another section of the foundation. And for me, it keeps coming back to, what are we going to do with this thing? And I know part of the forum in June is that discussion, but for me, it keeps coming back to, what are we going to do with this barn and house? And, you know, we put a lot of money into it. People want us to maintain it, but people want us to be doing something with it. They don't like seeing it empty. They don't like that it's just there. And that for me is what always comes back to me is, what are we going to do with this property?
If I had an answer, we would
I
be
know.
Right,
done.
I think that's everybody,
That's the
everybody's
crux.
question,
Yeah.
clearly. And, you know, I think unfortunately, we've got limitations in
Right.
terms of what we can and can't do at this point in
Right.
time
Right.
because of predominantly the Article 97 designation.
Right.
So, you know, if we truly want to do this original concept that the community seemed to be in favor of and supportive when we purchased the property,
Right.
then it's going to require one of two things. Either the town ponies up all of the money that's needed to make this property what everybody kind of envisioned, or the other route is to move towards more of a private, public partnership in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
So, but that's the discussion, I think.
Right.
One of the things I'm considering proposing is the possibility of doing a feasibility plan, like I don't want to call it a master plan for the property, but a general conceptual idea of what could happen with it. I do think that there's general agreement that the barn should be used as some community function space somehow. The house could have a multitude of uses, municipal uses, community uses.
Rental to the community, rental first, all kinds of stuff.
So, and I think where we have really gotten bogged down is, okay, well, how do we do that? To the point it really comes down is, are we going to go through a public-private partnership, and can we go through a public-private partnership and do that? Or are we going to take on that nut and just do it ourselves?
Right.
So the thing is, if we get a master plan or feasibility study completed, along with a high-level estimate, similar to what we did with the public safety building when we were evaluating the two sites, we would at least have better intelligence to help make that decision moving forward. And then we could use that as a basis for whatever we decide to do, whether it's that public-private partnership or doing it on our own.
Right. And right now, we don't really have the temperature of the community in terms of supporting, major amounts of money to upgrade the property. We don't know that. I'm not going
And
to speculate one way or the other, but
Right.
we don't have that information.
And I think that if we're going to ask the community to pony up the money for it, we have to lay out for them what it's going
What it's
to
gonna be,
right.
potentially be, because if we just ask the community for, say, $3 million to supplement what we already have in ARPA funds to do it, without a real clear path,
Right.
there's not going to be any
Well,
support.
and as we've seen here in town, right, a lot of times what happens is we're like, okay, we're going to buy a piece of property, but we don't know what we're going to do with it.
Right.
Because either we have to do it quickly or whatever reason.
Yep.
So,
So right now,
That's
the
what's for me.
plan is to replace the roof, fix the foundation in a particular point, but leave everything else as it is. So
Correct.
it'll essentially still look the same.
It won't have a hole in the roof.
We won't have a hole in the roof.
but
And it
there's
buys
other
us time.
places in the barn that have holes that need to get fixed, right? In the walls. Aren't there some places where there's, cracks and not true
there could
holes,
be.
but because it's an old barn, there's, it's not, just because we put a new roof on it doesn't make it's going to be 100% weather tight, right?
I would say that's fair.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, I haven't mapped it out exactly where all the nooks and crannies
Yeah.
and where the holes are, but I would say, a barn of that age and that condition, you're not
Right.
going to make it completely weather tight. The good thing about a new roof is it will help assist the cabling in providing some type of rigidity
Yeah.
to the structure.
And is there a way to determine what we can salvage inside in terms of the superstructure, which is really the historical value,
Well, I think
if it exists?
part of this plan would be getting in a preservationist to somebody who specializes in this type of work to let us know what
Yeah,
can happen.
I drive by, not as often anymore, the barn in Holliston that the Historical Society owns.
They got a great thing.
And one day I was doing something in Holliston and I drove by, and I've told a couple of you this already. And I went in, I said, okay, I hadn't been in, I'd never had an event, and it's this great open space. It has a cement floor. They were way ahead of us, and back in the late 70s, early 80s, they put a kitchen on the back, they put bathrooms on the back. And the Historical Society of Holliston manages it and runs it, and it's a great space, and nothing fancy, but from what I hear, it's used a lot.
It is used a lot. It's booked a lot. So is Thayer Homestead.
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
Which is a little bit.
That's a little different, but
yeah.
yeah. So, anyway,
Yeah, well,
Okay.
my concern with respect to that, if you don't mind, I kept my mouth shut for the last 15 minutes, but now I have to say something. I really do. If you're gonna fix that building, you have to start from the bottom and work up. That foundation needs to be fixed first. And it just fixed a portion of it. That whole foundation needs to be replaced. Because no matter what we decide to do with that building down the road, at least that part of it will be ready for it. And if you don't do that, it's gonna cost us more money down the road to just fix the portion that we haven't fixed yet. So if we're gonna do it, let's do it right. Get the foundation fixed first. Because
I'm not sure I think we can fix portions of the foundation that will stabilize it. I think we would probably want to have a longer-term plan before we decide what to do, because do we want to try to keep the rock foundation that's there, or do we need, like, considering the uses that we're talking about, do we need to pour a slab?
well,
and do
that's
something
the
like
Well, you can't
possibility that
really.
you.
Sorry.
No, I would think that would be the right thing to do, is to look at putting a slab floor
But
in.
you can't put a slab because it has a basement, right? Doesn't it have a crawl space under there?
You can
Has
fill
a
that
crawl
in with dirt.
space.
Yeah,
Yeah, but you would
You could do
have
that.
to fill that and then pour the
yeah,
slab.
you could do that. It's doable.
Yeah.
Just a thought, guys, that's all. I
Yeah.
just hate like heck to see us spend all that money and then, oh, looks like the Leaning Tower of Valentine.
I
There we
think
go.
the preservationist idea is important.
Yeah.
Because I think there's some question as to what type of wood the superstructure
Is really in there.
actually is.
Yeah.
You know, so it may not be original, it may not be, may not be worth saving.
Or it might be original, but it might not be as special as we thought.
True.
Yeah. Most of the carpenters don't think it's chestnut. That we
Really?
talk to. Yeah. We think it's more oak and pine.
Oh,
Well, that's interesting, because pine's soft. That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's what the carpenters tell me.
Yeah.
So as far as next steps for the Valentine, do you need us to take a vote on, like,
No, I think,
How we're-
so you voted on the ARPA funds.
Okay.
So.
That was a while back.
are we gonna see
We-
that work getting started before this meeting on June 29th, or no?
I doubt that, because
Okay.
Jen's gonna need to put it out to bid.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
gonna say, you have to put that out to bid and stuff, right? Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
Okay,
Thank
Okay.
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
interesting forum.
Yes, and then Warren District, the only update I have right now is that we did get the amended preservation restriction filed with the Registry of Deeds, so that's all set.
Good.
Can you remind us of what that is?
So remember, Paul Gustafson came before the board and asked to amend the preservation restriction
Yes,
that you had
okay, that's
authorized?
Sign change.
So,
Okay.
The window change, yeah.
okay,
Okay.
Moving along to town manager reports.
okay.
Go ahead.
So, police chief update. I had planned on bringing Kara Rossi, Chief Rossi, in on our meeting on the 6th in July, the day after she started, or technically the day after she
don't have
started.
one.
But now we're not meeting on the 6th.
The 13th, I meant. I'm sorry. But I think there might be an appetite from the board to meet with her sooner and just kind of introduce her to the community. So I'll see what her availability is. I know she was going to take some vacation before she left, and see if we can do that.
So possibly for our next meeting.
Possibly for
Okay.
our next meeting. So a couple of things I had here that I didn't technically put on the agenda. I want to give an update on the sustainability manager and filling that position. We've had a really difficult time filling that. We did have one lady who had accepted, and she lasted all of a week, actually less than a week, before she was like, this is too much. And so since that time, we've made 2 offers to people. We've gone through 2 rounds of interviews, and we've extended 2 offers, and both of them have not accepted. So, you know, it's been a little difficult.
Frustrating.
What are the issues, Michael? It's like a dream job, I'd say, but is it
Well,
right?
Rob, do you want to apply?
Well, you know what? Chuck Lids is retired. You know, maybe he's got nothing better to do. Maybe he should do it. I'll nominate.
You know, he would definitely be a good person in that role. I think one is just workers nowadays want, first of all, flexibility, more flexibility. We're pretty flexible here, but you know, I think one basically wanted to work 30 hours a week. You know, not 40 hours a week.
But get paid for 40 hours.
Well, eventually, yeah, essentially. And then the latest candidate, I believe he was offered another job with a much higher salary. So I'm not sure. That's not what he didn't state that specifically when he declined the offer. But
So what would be wrong with hiring someone and for 30 hours and paying them for 30 hours to at least get someone in here working on stuff? Do we feel like we have too much?
It's a 40-hour-a-week job.
Oh, okay.
It really is. Actually, it's, you know, I think to do it right, they're probably going to have to put in some weeks beyond that 40 hours. That's just what our
Yeah, I think there's
expectation
some
is.
less flexibility on evenings also.
Well, to Yolanda's point, 30 hours is better than 0 hours. You know, I get a lot of volunteers to be willing to help with things.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so anyway, that's just where we are with that. We haven't.
I'm
talked
calling
about it.
Chuck. I'm going to call
You're gonna
Chuck.
call- Just to give you an update on Legacy Farms, so our peer reviewer, Mike Carter with GCG Associates, has been working closely with the developer's wetland engineer to work out a resolution on that Legacy Farm site and how their stormwater impacts us. So they've made some really good progress. The developer has agreed on their site to enlarge some systems. They have proposed to make some improvements at their cost on our site. We're just making sure that all of that is going to accomplish what we hope it will accomplish. And then hopefully we would work that settlement out, and then we'd come before the board and ask the board to approve the settlement agreement.
Hey, Mike, was there any issues with the past storm that we had? I mean, because it came down pretty quick and kind of heavy at times.
Not that I'm aware of. Becca usually
Okay.
does a pretty
right.
good job of keeping
Thanks.
track of that.
Now, there's still a cease and desist on that property, right? Is that,
Correct.
are they holding to that?
They're holding to that. They were allowed to finish some, like 4 foundations, which they have done with that. I think there was some talk at the Conservation Commission about lifting the cease and desist, but I don't think they moved forward with that.
Okay.
Michael, is that the over 50 development?
I believe it
Legacy?
is the age
Yeah,
restriction.
you know, I happened to be out there on Saturday. It is really close to the well site.
It is.
It's just like basically across the street. Like,
It certainly
It is.
really, guys, that's where you built this? I mean, it's, you know, it's just. Anyway.
Yeah, and we're dealing with the issues just because of that, Rob, because of how close
Yeah.
it is.
Going to develop it.
So,
Right.
moving along, I don't know if everybody saw, but today we did raise the pride flag up at the front of town hall. So, you know, happy Pride Month to everybody, and we're glad to show our support for everybody in the community by flying that flag. Do want to remind everybody that the Corner Spot is having its grand opening this Saturday coming up. So, you know, many thanks to Beth, Ashley, and everybody who works to get that. Marley, Jeff. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few people who work really hard to make that DPW.
It's nice to
I
see
was
the
gonna give
new
those.
stone under the seating area.
Yeah, it
It's
looks
a nice
good.
improvement.
It looks good. We recently, actually last night, we had a program dedicated to Teens Mental Health. Brandy, I know you were able to go to that.
Yeah, I was there as a parent, not as a town representative at all. So it was good. Decisions at Every Turn sponsored that. They had a really great speaker, plus Jen Cutler, who's the director of social emotional learning at Ashland Public Schools. It was a good forum. It was, you know, I know that having it the day after Memorial Day weekend was a little challenging for them. So, you know, just getting the word out and getting people there. But hopefully they continue to have more events like that, because I think the discussion, it was funny because I walk in and all the parents in the front row are like all my son's peers. So, you know, we're all going through the same challenges with teens and mental health, especially during COVID and especially during a lot of the crises that we've seen with, you know, the school shooting and coming out of COVID. It's just been a challenge. So
Was that a hybrid meeting so that if people wanted to stay home and watch it, they could do that? Or
no, it was, and I don't even think it was recorded at all. So,
oh, wow.
yeah, so it you know, and it was actually the meeting could have gone, like, it was an hour and a half. We could have talked for longer. Yeah.
Course.
So, but thank you to the Decisions at Every Turn Coalition for putting that together, and Ashland Public Schools for being a part of that, because it's important, definitely important.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Do want to let you know that the Board of Health has decided to award this year's Mary Mortensen Health Award to our we're calling our COVID-19 response team, so our police and fire department, as well as our community and school nurses.
Oh, nice.
That's
awesome.
great.
Yeah.
They will be receiving their award next on June 7th at 6:05 p.m.
Oh,
So
great.
at the
Nice.
Board of Health meeting. And then finally, just want to say thank you to everybody who came to the Memorial Day celebration. It was, I thought, very, very good comments from Lieutenant Colonel Walker. Really appreciate the VFW for putting that together, and Fred, and then also our DPW, who always does amazing work, just did a great job of getting that place.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
It's a good, great event.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Boy Scouts.
And the
Boy
Boy
Scouts,
Scouts putting
correct.
flags up.
The Boy Scouts did a great job.
Absolutely, and that's what I have.
Okay.
Michael, do you want to, you want to just maybe update the aftermath of the whole waste management issue? With,
Trash.
you did a ton of work on that, I think, so.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, I'm found out today that I think some streets still have not been picked up. So just for
On
everybody.
their regular route today.
Yeah,
I saw
it's so Waste Management experienced some truck breakdowns, and then they had some personnel issues and some family medical issues that stalled and delayed their ability to kind of get back on track. So it's, you know, like Rob said, I've been having conversations all weekend with Doug and then Waste Management as well. Let them know how unacceptable this is, and I think in our next contract we'll be looking at will require them to have new trucks as part of this.
Was Waste Management a good partner in these discussions? Like, you know, how receptive were they to feedback? And
Well,
I mean,
they were great about saying, "Oh yeah, this stinks. We'll get to it tomorrow."
and the responsiveness.
Well, and then they did come on Sunday, right, to
Right.
finish some
They
of
did
it.
come on Sunday, and they even came on Monday.
Wow.
But to still have some, you know, areas not picked up, you know, it's
You know, one of the
unfortunate.
things, I think communication is really crucial, and you know, I think we did, you know, Michael, you did your best to get the communication going, but situations like this, they should be very, you know, they had a breakdown and then they had a further breakdown and they weren't making their schedule. I think one of the things you tell people what can they expect and when, you know, and, you know, they were just not doing that on a timely basis.
Yeah, it was a breakdown in trucks and
Yeah,
communication.
you know, it's interesting because I think many people, maybe most residents, they measure government by, you know, the roads being plowed and the trash being picked up, right?
Yeah.
And when that breaks down,
That's,
breaks
it
down.
breaks
It-
down.
How
that's-
many- but
Local
how many-
government
Yeah.
has broken
Yeah.
down.
But remember,
Yeah.
how many other businesses over the last couple weeks and months have been having issues because of lack of parts and things, because of supply chain issues, lack of staff? I mean, I heard the story how the ships to Martha's Vineyard couldn't run this weekend for Memorial Day weekend. They had to shut them down for 24 hours because there was one staff member that couldn't get there. And because of all the requirements. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but I think everyone is dealing with issues these days, and communication certainly is important, but I think we can't measure someone just by that. And
Yeah.
certainly not right now with what's going on.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Yolanda, because there is becoming a broader issue in local government in terms of getting people to like do these jobs. And so
Right.
there's a potential that we could experience stuff like this more and more.
Well, you made a fine point about the sustainability
Right, the
director.
sustainability coordinator who.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. You can't, I guess you really don't want to have to work, right? Okay. Maybe all these free checks that people are getting for, a
They're not
year ago.
getting them anymore,
They're
but
not
yeah.
getting it anymore. Guess what? There's no free food here. No free table. But,
Definitely a
this is the
laborer's
first time-
market.
This is the first time that I've received at least 6 or 7 calls at home. What the heck's going on with the trash? Well, if I knew, I'd tell you. I don't know. And then you sent the email, which was helpful, and so I went back and told, a good portion of the folks, breakdown, but it'll happen. You'll get, service on Sunday.
So if people still haven't had their trash picked up, should they notify
Dave Miller,
or Dave Miller?
Right.
Okay,
DPW.
all right, sounds good.
Cool.
Thank you. Do you have anything else under town manager
I
report?
don't, I'm clear.
Wow.
Okay, we're moving on. All right, to board reports. I'll go down the line. Steve?
Okay, I got permission before I mentioned this. I was at the community center this morning and had a discussion with, was talking to Joanne Duffy, our Director of Elder Affairs, and she informed me that she's retiring as of the end of January, July, excuse me, at the end of July, so.
Oh, wow. So soon.
So it's coming up. She actually said she had put in her retirement papers prior to the pandemic, but,
Stayed
she
on.
decided not to retire at that point in time. But, Joanne has been director for 20 years and, has developed, just great relationships in that building with that demographic. And,
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are going to miss her. But, she's moving on to the next phase. I think, she's certainly ready to retire and, psychologically ready at this point. But, I think a lot of people are going to miss her and, I was surprised, but, I just wanted to make mention of that. Want to make note, the farmer's market starts on June the 11th. I think we've got Brandy and Michael penciled in or penned in for comments on opening day. And so that'll be the start of our 11th season. We've got a full complement of vendors, and the Railroad House Band has been our traditional opening day band for our entire 11 years, so that's great. Actually, 10 years that they played because we missed a year because of COVID. So that's June the 11th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., the Metro West famous Ashland Farmers Market.
Sounds good.
The Ashland Lions Club is doing a shredding event or shredding service on June the 11th as well. That's noon to 3 o'clock. So, boxes of papers that you might have at home that might be a little sensitive to get them shredded. I believe that's at the VFW, if I'm not
Yes, in the
mistaken.
back.
So, I think, and it's free, so that's a great way to get rid of any sensitive documents that you might be stuck in the basement somewhere.
Unless it's
And
unpleasant
I
to the
think
site.
one other, I know we talked a little bit about the state park earlier. I just wanted to, I guess, throw out, and I'm sure it's on the radar with, the summer coming up and the hot weather and, the issues that we've had in the past with the state park and the lack of support that the state provides to the state park. You may be aware that DCR closed Ashland, Hopkinton, and Constituent over this past weekend. And so if that's going to be the rule, what happens? And so I'm sure our staff is engaged and aware. It's just continuously disappointing that DCR is not, really I think taking care of business here. So I'll just leave it at that. And then the last
Hey,
thing.
Steve, could I just ask you a question about, do you know if, do they still have that rear parking lot with a bunch of debris piled on it?
Rob, I have no idea. That's a good question. There's 3 large parking lots there.
Yeah.
And I don't believe they're all fully open. So when they close it, they're only closing, because one parking lot, maybe 2 are maxed out. But they closed Hopkinton as well, which has got a tremendous number of parking areas. So,
Yeah.
but clearly there's a need for this. There are people that this is the way that they're able to this is their cool off space, right? So, and then the last thing I wanted to just mention, relative to the shooting in the mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas, is that in 2020, guns became the leading cause of death for children between the ages of 1 and 19. It previously had been auto-related deaths, but now, so think about that. This is, and it's, actually, when you look at the statistics, mass shootings are relatively infrequent. I mean, as horrendous as they are and how, how we respond to them, but most of the deaths are due to homicide and suicide among this demographic, 1 to 19. So I think it's just that's just a stunning statistic, which tells you it's forget about a conversation about guns and gun control. This is a public health issue.
Yeah.
It's as big a part of mental health discussion or anything that's related to the difficulties, the challenges of growing up in America today. So I'll just leave it at that. So thank you.
On that positive note.
Yeah, no, sorry, but
That's okay.
this is the world we live in.
Yeah. Yolanda?
So just first, a couple things. So in regards to the Shred-It event that Steve mentioned, the Lions have reached out. If you are a business and you would like to have a table or a tent, it's, I think, $50 to go and be there when the Shred-It event is happening, and that's one of the ways that they're helping pay for it, is to allow businesses to be there to promote themselves. So that, I think, is good to know. Let's see. So first things that I've done, I was at the reality fair at the Ashland High School with Brandy and Michael, and talking to these kids about budgets and reality, and this was my second year. It's a fun event. Some of these kids really get it. Some of them just don't quite get it, but it's a good thing to do, so it was fun to do. I'll be going to class day on Friday with Joe to give out our scholarships, and we'll announce the names of those at our next meeting. And then I will be attending graduation on Sunday. I know not a lot of us can go, so I'm going to that. Let's see, a few things. I got a phone call by someone, and I know we can't act on this, but something to think about. It was requested by a citizen that we talk about banning the sale of nips because of the trash they generate. And he said he cleans up Chestnut Street, and he sees a lot of them there, and I'm on Gunko Road. And I let him know, I said, it's not that easy. We as a board just can't decide that, but I would certainly bring it to everyone's attention. A couple upcoming things. On Friday, June 10th from 8 to 10:30. As of right now, it's going to be in person, but there'll also be a remote, is the Metro West Regional Collaborative Legislative Breakfast. So an opportunity, Karen, as of right now, Senator Spilka has said that she'll be able to be there. Rep. Lewis has put it on his calendar. So an opportunity to meet with them as well as some other legislators. As I mentioned, the June 13th, the beam raising at the Mendez, and then this is an opportunity for me to bring some of my culture's things that I work on. I work with the Dancing Arts Center out of Holliston, and we are bringing the full-length ballet of Capalia to the Ashland High School on Sunday, June 12th at 4 p.m. We have a guest artist, one of our past students who works with Cincinnati Ballet, is coming in to play the male lead. New costumes, new set, and yeah, we're looking forward to doing it at the Ashland High School. So Sunday, June 12th, 4 p.m., Dancing Arts Center. You can go to their site and get tickets, or if you're interested, I can email you the link directly. But yeah, it'll be fun to
Very cool.
do it at the high school. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, Yolanda and Steve have given me, mentioned things already that I was going to bring up, so I won't have to mention them again. But I would like to say that the summer concerts will be in full swing. We're still working on getting certain bands, but as of right now, what we will do is we will post the bands that are going to be playing, so that way you all have an idea of when and where. So we're looking at that. The pavilion will be opened when school gets out. We've had some issues with the kids over there for whatever reason. We need to get a larger area for older kids to be able to express and save some of their steam, get rid of some of their steam, because right now Kid Spot is not a place for 14s or 13-year-old kids to be horse playing around in that area, because it gets damaged, and it gets damaged real quick. So we need to think about another location, maybe on the other side of the pavilion. We could put something over there for the older kids. We talked about maybe a skate park to put something there in that area, something to think about. And the Affordable Housing Trust is looking at doing a project. We did send off old RFPs that we had and designs, and I don't know, Michael, if Steve sent them off to you or not, but they were old plans.
He sent them to me.
He
and
sent them to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
so he and I briefly talked, and I got to circle
Okay.
back with him on some of that.
So that's something that we would like to initiate and look at.
That'll probably be on the next
Okay.
meeting
All
agenda.
right, cool.
But I got to get back to Steve.
What
And
was
I
that, Joe? I had trouble hearing you in that last one.
Talking about potential Olive Street project
Great.
with the Affordable Housing Trust in connection with the Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, great.
Working with that group. And lastly, I would just like to say that I was very pleased, again, with the DPW and how they maintain the cemetery and how they got it ready for Memorial Day. That's a very honorable day for all of us, and for the people who gave up their lives for us to be able to do the things that we do without fear of reparation. I think that it was well done. And if there's anything that we could do as a board to help fund this program, maybe a little bit more, to be able to do things. I remember we used to have a parade that's, it's not there anymore, this or that, but maybe something to consider with the youth groups in town and stuff, and they're not going away or whatever. It's just, to have their representatives. The Scouts were there in full bloom, so 232, thank you for being there. And Lieutenant Colonel Walker, your comments were very well taken. And never thought of that aspect of individuals who lost their lives because they contracted some sort of disease while they were abroad. And, they died in a hospital bed. Maybe not on the battlefield, but they died in a hospital bed. So very interesting, and I really appreciate all those comments.
Joe, I think one of the reasons they didn't do the parade was because of the work downtown.
The work downtown?
It would have been very difficult to do it and to do the usual
Yeah.
celebration that they do downtown.
Good point. Good point. Let's get that done sooner than later. And that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
2 years from now.
All right, thanks, Joe. Rob?
I don't really have anything, but just to add on to the Memorial Day ceremonies, those are very nice. And I would just say to folks who are around on the weekend, it's really a great thing to go to. Kind of gives you a little bit of an interlude from the other craziness, and you get into some, think about some sincere things. And of course, Brett did a very nice job bringing up, people who died of disease. That's a great point. And my only other thing was, as I'm sitting here thinking about coming trends, and we should think about it, is pickleball. So to go from the sublime to the mundane, but pickleball is getting very popular, and our tennis and pickleball capacity is really very limited, and we should start thinking about these kind of recreational things.
So the university club.
Yeah, I was going to say the university club has that.
Well, and that's fine, but it's not a public facility; it's a club. So we should think about, as a town, what are we doing for the residents as a whole? So anyway,
we've
just my
also
thought on
had-
that.
Say it was up at the middle school?
Yeah, so Rob, there is a tennis court / pickleball court up at the middle school. I know at least the kids play pickleball
Oh yeah,
up
you
there.
mentioned that.
Yeah.
That's where I try to play tennis, but it is kind of a limited facility. So,
Yep. Yeah.
but I'm glad to hear that we should think about that. I think people are looking at places like Stone Park and things like that. But
Yeah.
just my thought.
Well, and the YMCA, when the YMCA comes, we'll have plenty of, I'm sure they're going to include
They've
pickleball.
actually played pickleball in the community center in the past. In the community room, they've had a pickleball league going on. But we've had other requests for things like a cricket pitch as well. We've had requests for Gaga pit, if you know what that is. So that's another
I missed that one, Steve.
activity.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Bocce.
That's good. Well, these are all all
We
things
had
worth
unlimited
considering. So that's-
resources, but we don't.
Yeah. Well, let's think about public recreation.
Yeah.
Going back to this whole field stuff. But that's all I had to say. So thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. So for me, I just have a couple of things. I represented the board about 10 days ago at the Eagle Scout Court of Honor for Zach Dickinson and Jason Kakowski, which was a really great experience. So Zach had done a project, his Eagle Scout project was at Ashland State Park, and he did a bridge. And Jason hauled boulders through the Ashland Town Forest and helped tremendously. In fact, he was telling how big these boulders were. And also, just as an FYI, the ATV that we had acquired in the Town Forest has has been so helpful in these projects. So I just wanted to thank Jason and Zach for all the work that they've done, and the Boy Scout Troop 232 and the Scoutmasters. They do such great work for our community, and I was happy to represent the board.
Thank you for representing us at that. It's great.
So, and there's another one.
I couldn't be there.
No, I know, Joe, I'm hopeful that there's one more Court of Honor that's coming up on, I think it's the 12th. So
They're great events.
it is a great
Yeah.
event. It's good.
Did you give out coins?
I did not give out coins, but
Very important.
so we will need to get a coin for the next one, because there's one
BSA
more.
is very important.
There's one more. So we will.
For the scholarship winners.
So we will, I think, and actually, I think that's going to be the last, the Scoutmaster told me that it's going to be the last Court of Honor for a while, because as the kids are kind of coming up in age, it's going to be a bit, but thank you to all of them. And the only other thing I really wanted to talk about was, trying to process what has happened in Uvalde, Texas, and the conversations and feedback and things that we've received. I had a conversation with Betsy Emberly, who for a while had kind of run point with the Courageous Conversations program over at the high school. And she had said that they had done a program probably 4 years ago after Parkland. And, I just kind of wanted to I think that there's a lot of, that there's anxiety, there's sadness, there's a lot for the community to process. And so, it's going to be difficult to get, I mean, the thing about the Courageous Conversations is it's led by the high schoolers. It's a youth-led program. But I just wanted to get the feel from the board, just in general, like if we wanted to put something together, or maybe give the community a forum to have a conversation about it, or I could also kind of work with Betsy and try to get something for the fall, for when school reopens, because we have less than 3 weeks left to go. So I just kind of wanted to get take the temperature of everyone and see if there was support for however we may want to go about putting together something for the public.
Yeah, I think that would be very much an important event for us to engage in. And I just want to preface that we shouldn't forget about the Buffalo shooting as well.
Right.
I think this needs to be, part of the big conversation.
Yeah.
And I think the information about, leading cause of death in children is important. I think
Right.
these are,
Yeah.
and I don't, clearly, I mean, we live in a state where we have very strong gun laws.
Yeah.
But the reality is this stuff doesn't happen anywhere else in the world except for the U.S.
Right.
And there has to be some solutions here that everybody can agree to.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
I think that's really where the conversation needs to be. Nobody's going to go out and, we're not talking about confiscating guns. We're talking about, just like we've made cars safer to drive and reduced driving deaths dramatically over time.
Yeah.
There seems to be opportunities to do the same thing with guns.
I appreciate you bringing up the Buffalo shooting too, because I was at the area meeting that was probably 2 weeks ago now, post Buffalo, and they were sharing their how they are processing it themselves, how they are talking to their children about what happened, and questions come up from the children about being safe in grocery stores, and is this going to happen at Shaw's, and just how hard that is. And so literally when I was at the area meeting, I wrote down courageous conversations, because I think that is, it's important to give people a forum to be able to talk about it, and also just to feel safe, to make sure that we as a community have safety as our number one priority. So I'm just, so thank you for sharing that. Does anybody?
So Brandy, so how do you see this as a process to help children or students deal with their fear or anxiety around these school shootings or gun violence in general?
So I guess the Courageous Conversations gives both youth and adults a mechanism for sharing their feelings, sharing how maybe change can happen at the community level. If they have ideas that could be implemented in Ashland, if there's concerns that come up that haven't been addressed by, say, Mr. Adams, our superintendent, or our police, and just having those people present to discuss those issues, I think it's meaningful for the community.
Yeah, I would think also, there's a lot of a lot of conflicting information that's coming out of Uvalde about the police response. And I think it would probably be comforting to people anywhere to have an understanding of how police operate in situations like this. Not that they, clearly every situation is different, individuals are different and so on, but, that's one of the things that's so striking about this event beyond, certainly the killings, is the conflicting information about the response.
Definitely. Okay. I guess I think that's all, I think it's a good process, but, I think one of the things to think about, and Steve, you brought this up about, we do understand there's common sense measures to take. And, I guess my frustration is that people need to be thinking more politically, because this is now, unfortunately, a political issue. We have one party that the Republican Party is still not willing to do anything about this. And that's been going on. And really the key thing is, are enough Republicans going to get elected in this upcoming election in November to continue doing nothing about gun control, to limiting abortion, to doing nothing about climate change, and to continue to endanger democracy. And to me, that's pretty straightforward,
Yeah, thank you.
unique times. And it's one thing to talk about things like this in Ashland, Massachusetts, with some of the strongest gun control laws in the nation. But there's a limit to what we can do here, frankly, given the national situation. So that's just my, that's my opinion and just kind of my frustration with this. So one thing I would say, if people want to do something, go out in New Hampshire and defend Maggie Hassan, who's running for re-election to the Senate. He's running against a Trump Republican who will do nothing about gun control if he wins.
So, Rob,
That's where I'm at.
I'm going to interrupt you with respect to that. Both parties are to be at fault with respect to this. You have 50 senators, and they're not all Republicans, and they're all Democrats, that have been sitting on a bill to reform gun control. It's everyone's to blame.
No, I think you're missing it, Joe. Because
I'm not missing it.
So I don't want to
I'm
get into,
far from
I don't want to
missing
get
it.
into
Yeah,
a
all
real
right, so-
political debate.
No, but
Yeah, okay.
the issue is,
I know.
he started it, and I'm going to end it real quick. The problem is, it's not just the guns, it's mental health.
All right. Well,
Think of the person that took that gun into the school. Was he in full mind? Come on, guys, let's think about that.
yeah, but was extremely well armed. In other countries,
was
would
well
just be poorly armed. Here, he's got assault weapons and body armor. I mean, that's the
With that, I'll
difference.
just
So,
speak my-
so I appreciate everybody's opinions.
Yeah.
I definitely do.
You brought it up, Brandy. So
I know. I'm
Yes,
talking.
but you
I'm
made
talking
it
about
political, Rob.
So
It is political. That's the essential reality. It's
so-
political.
So what I'm hearing is that there may be an opportunity for us to have some sort of community discussion, however that takes
I think so.
effect. So I'm happy to kind of start reaching out to folks and seeing if we can put something together. I know summertime's hard, so.
Community, that triangle. What are the three things that make a community? Schools, right? That's one. We, the government, all right, and the people that live in it.
Right.
The residents.
Yep.
They all need to be part of this discussion.
Right. So, absolutely. I can't agree with you more. So, on
I
that.
didn't hear any of that, but that's all right.
Okay,
Wouldn't have listened.
so I think I have some takeaways on that, and I will kind of start working to try to put something more
Who's
formalized
coming
together.
to New Hampshire with me besides Joe? Anybody else?
Okay.
Let you go there. Motion to adjourn before this gets out of hand.
Okay. All those in favor, you could just raise your hand.
Aye.
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 All right, we're officially adjourned. Thank you all for hanging with us tonight, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Good job on your first meeting.